Okay, we are live. So we're here for another game of Dream Chaser, a game of destiny. It's a tabletop role-playing game. I like to call it a collaborative story-building game because we're going to create a game around a goal of the player's design. So I'm not going to tell them what they're going to play. They're going to tell me what they want to play. So today we have two players. We have Heather. Heather, say hi, please.
Hi.
And Heather, where do you live? You don't have to say the city, please, but...
California. The town is Lafayette. It is near San Francisco.
And what time is it for you?
It is 10:43 a.m.
Which is just fun. I live near Chicago, so I'm Pete. I'm the creator of the game. I'm going to be running the game today, so I'm the guide, or GM if you prefer. It's about 12:45 here in Chicago, so an hour after noonish. But we also have Toby here. And Toby, say hi.
Hey, what's up?
And Toby, where are you at?
I'm in Ireland, and right now the time is 6:43, so there's quite a big difference there.
Yeah, so I don't always get to do that, but at the same point, I was like, man, I need to mention it because it's just fun, because only with the internet can we do things like this anyway. So on to the game. So with the game, first thing we do is we make characters, but even before that, we kind of build the premise for the story. So in the step-by-step process of the book, the first thing we do is we put out a thing called a dream map. So I'm going to throw this up on the screen just so you guys can see what it looks like. And get that screen share. And
Oh, that's really tiny on my mobile.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Don't worry, you don't have to interact with it, but just so people can see it. So as I can see it here. So what's just kind of neat is that what we're going to do is we're going to come up with our dream, which is here in the middle. And usually you would do this with index cards. So each player is going to come up with an idea of what the goal of the game could be. They're going to vote on which one they prefer. And then that's going to become the focus of what our story is about. And then each character they make is going to have a personal goal or goal they want in our story, which is going to create one of these milestones. And these milestones are like chapters in telling our grander story. So let's get on with it. Let me pull this off the screen. And okay. So back in action. So with the players. So we want to narrow down what is the dream of our game. So the first question we would ask out of the book is, what do you want to accomplish in your game? What do you want to achieve together? Because that's kind of the spirit of it. So what's our story going to be about? So I would tell you to come up with a dream, which is a goal, in maybe 5 to 7 words or a short sentence. Come up with at least one each. No more than 2 or 3, please, because then it's hard to vote. But in this case. So I know that a couple of you had come up with some ahead of time. So why don't we start with Heather?
Okay, my first one is gain basic civil rights for talking rocks.
And you said gain, right?
Uh-huh.
Gain basic civil rights?
Yes.
That's awesome. Obtain. Oh, there you go. And Toby, how about you? Give me one of yours.
Just one. It was find the ultimate safe haven.
Find the ultimate safe haven. Sorry, I'm just like, sometimes what's beautiful about these is that they make my mind wander too. So, Heather, what else do you got?
Okay, my other one is figure out how to grow back to our original size.
And you mentioned something earlier about that. You said something like, because maybe we are the descendants of the giants of legends, and we're not really supposed to be this size. That's so cool. So we have all these stories about these people who are like, I don't know, 20 feet tall, 30 feet tall, and then now we're like 5.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and then Toby, you have another one?
It was free the elements.
Yeah, and what was the first word?
Free.
Free the elements. Oh, cool. It makes me think of like scions or elementals, or or even just some kind of like world of gods that like trap. They're like, there will be no more rain.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. It's just like
that's so cool. Okay, so with those in mind, the first one was Heather. Why don't you say the first one? Well, first of all, I guess I'll ask both of you. Did one jump out at either of you? Normally, we would pass around these index cards and we'd tally them up and get a vote, but in the virtual sense, it's kind of hard to do that. So
I think the civil rights for rocks is pretty good.
I'm actually thinking we could combine the civil rights for rocks along with find the ultimate safe haven. What if we were the
Ooh. Yes.
No, that'd be good. Yeah, that could be good.
Okay, so it sounds like the greater goal would be which one?
Tricky. Wait. What if we did the civil rights for rocks with the free the elements, and where the rocks are like elemental kind of things?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we put in something in a glow. How would we do that?
Don't worry about how. Let's just set the goals and then we'll make it happen. Yeah.
Okay, so we're a bunch of rocks trying to free the elements, and humans don't listen to us.
So,
okay, yeah. That sounds good.
So we actually are talking about making the story about free the elements and maybe having those other two being our sort of character milestones, is what it sounds like. Does that sound like a good premise?
We could do that, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to write on my handy GM sheet, which I won't bore you all with having to pull it up on the screen, but it's my visual representation of that dream map so that, if this was more than a one-shot game, I'd have my notes to remember the order. So we're talking about a game where the dream is to free the elements. Step 2 is now that we know what it's about, we got to talk about who we want to be in it. We call that your role. So for each of you, in 2 to 3 words, describe a character you'd like to play in this story. Now, somebody mentioned a talking rock, for example. So maybe it could be something as simple as like a wisecracking talking rock, or a sassy talking rock, or a idealistic talking rock. But it doesn't have to have talking rock in it if we already assume that, hey, we're all talking rocks. So maybe talking rocks have a society where there's miners and stonemasons, or I don't know. So think about it for a minute. In 2 to 3 words, think of who you'd want to be in this story. Just describe them with at least one adjective. And as soon as you come up with an idea, you can just spit it out, and maybe the other player will help them play off of it.
What's another word for being controlled, or being controlled? There's a word for that, like a single word.
Okay, being controlled, manipulated. You're a puppet. You are obviously a laborer, a slave, indentured servant.
Blank.
Yeah, right. And as long as we know what you're trying to go for, getting the words pretty close is all we need.
I think the puppet was pretty good, so I'm gonna use that.
And Heather, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I am a sassy and free-spirited stone who's not afraid to move among humans. I'm actually in a piece of jewelry, but my owner does not realize that I can think, feel, and get away from her if I want to.
That's great. So let's sum it up in just 2 to 3 words, or a short phrase or something. So it sounds like you were like a sassy independent rock, or a sassy independent freedom fighter.
Sassy and free-spirited.
Okay. Okay. Hearing that, so you said sassy and free-spirited, and then Toby, what did you say?
I think I'm gonna go for loyal steel golem.
Nice.
Like
Did you say steel golem?
Yeah, steel golem. Yeah.
Okay. That's a great play on being a rock. I love it. Yeah, that's sassy. And I'm sorry, Heather, you said sassy, and what was it again?
Free-spirited.
Free-spirited, okay. And then were we just putting rock at the end of it, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to write Heather, and I'm going to write Toby. Okay, step 3. So throwing that dream map back on the screen would be, we want to come up with the experiences you want to get out of this story. There's probably some reason why you picked the character you wanted to pick. The idea is that now we want to make sure that if this was a game where you made an assassin, right? You probably made it because you wanted to have a mark or a target and go after them. And sometimes we play games where there's no room for your assassin, but they let you make it anyway. So what we're doing in Dream Chasers, we're making sure you get at least one of those experiences for the reason you made your character out of this story. So you can look at it as one of two things. You're going to make like another goal, right? It's a sub goal. It's like kind of a baby dream within the dream. And you'd make it just the same way, 5 to 7 words, a short sentence, something like that. But it's either what do you want to get out of the story with your character, or what's the coolest thing that should happen in this story? So now you both came up with those extra dreams, and we kind of talked about how you might use those. So feel free to use those if that's what you want to do too. Somebody had something about like the emancipation or the liberation of the rocks, and Toby, you had something which was we took free the elements. The safe haven, maybe?
Is that the dream? Yeah,
free the elements is the dream. So this would be a milestone in the story. Then while they're doing that, I'm going to just throw this back up. The idea is, so right here, this middle card that we had, imagine if this said free the elements. What they're working on right now is what's going to be in this milestone 1 box and what would be in this milestone 2 box. In a short game of Dream Chaser, every player would have 1 milestone. But in a longer game, like if you wanted to play this for more of a prolonged period or a long campaign, each player character might have up to 3 of these. And then we would order them, and you'd have, for most people, this would become kind of like a session roadmap. Like this would be session 1, and this would be session 2, and session 3. But depending on how you play, you might do 2 of these in a session. But what's nice is each one of these is probably, an hour to 2 hours long. So it's also nice that you can kind of ahead of time plan out, with what time you have available, how you would play this game.
So, question, do we each pick a milestone 1 and a milestone 2 for ourselves?
No, you each pick 1, and then that's going to go on this map.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Either one of you have something? Make sure they're short. Otherwise, we're going to abbreviate them.
Oops.
That's okay.
Well, okay. Well, maybe you can help me shorten it.
Yeah,
I
of course.
have 2 here. So I have destroy controllers from manufactured elements. Is one.
Okay.
And the other is find a place hidden from controllers.
Okay. Yeah, no, those are actually pretty good. And we could summarize the top one as destroy the controllers. Or controllers manufacture, machines or something. But I like it because it tells me it's not too specific. It's still broad enough, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And Heather, what do you have in mind?
Something along the lines of bring light to the humans or wake up the humans.
Awesome. Yeah, those are both great. And to me, they say the same thing. So I guess we could help Toby figure out which one of those 2 he likes. Which one of the 2 that you made up, Toby, would you like most? Because you know what hers is going to be. Hers is going to be wake up the humans, or or show them the light.
I think yours should be like throw stones at them.
Oh, like we throw a stone at them, throw myself at them.
So Toby, which one of the 2 you told me do you like with hers?
I like one of them.
Huh?
I'd say Destroy controller.
Okay.
Destroy controllers. That could apply to anything really. So yeah, I'll go for that one.
Okay. So with those two in mind, destroy the controllers and show humans the light. Which one of those do you think happens first? And right now we're like chapter building is what we're doing.
They could happen in either order. It's a different story.
Exactly.
So if we want it to be that we have shown the humans the light, and so they stop what they're doing, or if we create a militaristic coup and then it's the light.
That came so fast.
Heather, do you have a preference?
I like them both for different reasons.
Right? Yeah.
It really depends. Like, what type of story do we want? Do we want one redemption or of in your face?
Exactly. I love you. Totally got it. Like sometimes people, they stare at it too linear, very linear like, and you're like, you're right. But there are movies that kind of drop that format on its head. Like Beowulf, where it starts with the sort of fall so that you can watch the rise.
I'd say maybe the human one first, and then destroy controllers.
Okay. So, do you have a preference on how we word that one, Heather? Show humans the light, or show? Sorry, what'd you say?
Show humans the light is a good one.
Okay. Show humans the light.
And there could be like humans that are still against the whole freedom thing, so they're like, let's destroy the other things, just show them.
Okay, and then that would mean the second milestone is to destroy the controllers. And we said, little note for me. Okay, so in that way, we kind of filled out our dream map, which basically would have the dream in the middle of free the elements. The first milestone is about showing humans the light, and then the second milestone is about destroying the controllers. And over the course of those two milestones, we should help tell the story of how we free the elements. Okay. We move straight into making characters from there. So you both have character sheets in front of you. You may have already filled in these spots, but if not, we're going to go through filling those out. And I'm going to pull this sheet up and throw it on the screen share, and just so people can see what we're talking about. So if you look at my screen, up at the top left, we have these little bubbles, 1, 2, 3, and in the top right, they match the blue step-by-step numbers. So it does show you on the sheet everything you need to know to kind of make the character. Our dream we came up with is free the elements. So go ahead and fill that in the Our Dream section. And when you're done with that, we're going to move on to My Role. And you're going to write down, we had the free-spirited, which was the sassy and free-spirited rock. And we have the loyal steel golem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For some reason, I wrote down stone thinking it was Heather's. I'm like, crap. So I have to scribble over this. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then step 3 is my milestone. So you're just going to write the one that was yours. So in the case of for Heather, you're going to write show humans the light. And then for Toby, you're going to write destroy the controllers. Okay, and then we get to tags. Now, what tags are just adjectives, things or phrases that describe your character. So in Dream Chaser, we're trying to help you make that character you imagine, that one that's in your head right now. We're not trying to tell you why it doesn't fit in this game. We're trying to reinforce what you were going for. So, for example, Toby, you said you wanted to be a loyal steel golem. So one of these would be very fitting to be loyal, right? or things that what is a steel golem? What makes a steel golem special? So maybe things like made of steel, man of steel, sturdy, strong, indestructible. And then for Heather, for you perfectly, obviously, it sounds like to me, sassy would be one of these. Free spirited would be one. Or you might think of words that make up that. Like these sassy people usually have quick retorts or wisecracks or, a lip.
How many of these do we want?
You get 3 of them. And you should write them on the left column.
Yeah.
And they could be anything that describes a character. Like, you could have a punk hairdo. You could have, shrunk shoulders. You could be tiny. You could be huge. You could be ball-shaped. You could have a tail. You could have 3 eyes. You could have blue eyes. You could have puppy dog eyes. You could have a heart of gold. You could be funny. And what you do with these is when you roll and you fail in the game, you're going to use these to justify why your character should re-roll and get another chance at succeeding. So, for example, if you try to do something that would be beneficial, something where a strong person should succeed, like rolling a boulder, and you're like, but wait, Pete, my character is super strong. I should be good at this. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, so if you were super strong, how would that help you? And you'd be like, well, I'm so strong, I can do this with one hand. So that's probably what I did. So now I use both. And I'm like, okay, re-roll. And then you get another chance to succeed. So you're going to use these to justify reasons why you should succeed. So even if they're bad, you're going to use them to be good or helpful for your character.
Okay. I think I'm done.
What you got?
My first one is puppet.
I'm a puppet.
Yeah, I said it earlier, so I was like, I'll put down puppet.
Yeah.
The second one is serviceable.
Serviceable. What do you mean by that?
It covers a lot, so I can use it for everything.
Meaning like you can be repaired or fixed or remodeled?
No, that's the next one. I think he's just reliable, kind of almost is probably the better word.
Oh, okay.
Like
what else?
Is known for doing well. A modification is another one.
Oh, okay.
So he can make attach or detach bits off him because he's steel. So
that's fun. Yeah. And Heather, what do you got?
Telepathic.
Ooh.
And determined. Well, now.
So, sorry, I heard telepathic and determined.
And small.
Small. Awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. And then we move on to strategies. So Dream Chaser is largely a skill-based game. When you got to do things, I'm going to ask you, okay, well, which one of your strategies would help you in this situation? And then you're going to frame how one of these 3 things you're going to make up is how you're going to try to succeed. So with strategies, if you look up at this number 5 block thing here, Legend 8, that section's grayed out. So it's unavailable when you make a character. You can place 3 of these, 1 in each one of these boxes, but up to 3 of them in any of these sort of 8 slots. So you can choose to have a beginner level at one of these strategies or the best level, but you couldn't have more than 2 at any one of these ratings because there's 2 columns. So what happens here is you see this number over here. You're going to roll on a d10 under that number to succeed. So you being the best at something gives you the most likely chance to succeed. You being a beginner at something is going to give you less likely of a chance to succeed. But examples, right? What's cool with this sort of situation here is you could be the best, shit talker, for example, or you could be, a beginner shit talker, and it's going to define more of what kind of a character you want to play. But there are fun mediums, like I like Inspector Gadget is a good example, or the Pink Panther. Any sort of bumbling investigator, that character is probably the best at being a bumbling idiot or being oblivious, but they're probably maybe a skilled or beginner inspector. the reason we call them strategies, though, is, I mean, this is your chance. You could have superpowers. You could perform miracles. These could be, you know, the use of some kind of technical item, like a rocket pack or a jet pack or a cybernetic arm. This is really funny because obviously the modifications part that Toby has. They can be your reputation, you know. They could be a group that you have, or they can be even phrases. Like sometimes people put like, "I'm rich, bitch," so they throw money at their problems. So there's no wrong way to word them. It's just a matter of, these are the 3 ways you're going to try to solve all of your problems.
I only have 2. I can't think of the third one.
What you got?
I have the strength is just 1.
Okay.
And then the second one is landmark, because he's so tall. He's just like a beacon almost.
That's a fun one. I like that. So you are the landmark. That's great.
Yeah. I can't think of a third one though.
Okay. So you went for loyal. You said something about being a puppet. You said something about being reliable. So, you know, you might have something that's like, you know, get shit done, or, you know, hardworking, or diligence, or, yeah. And for Heather, I know one of the things you're going to want to consider is one of your tags. Oh, the telepathic.
Yes.
It's a perfect fit for either one. You're either going to, when you go to do something, are you going to want to be able to say, well, you know, I'm going to read their mind, and that's how I'm going to succeed? Or are you going to try to talk to somebody, roll the die and fail, and then be like, oh, but Pete, I can read minds. And then I'm going to, you know, see, it's more of, do you want this to be a tool of yours, or do you want this to be a sort of like a modifier, like a benefit?
Okay. So the tag is a modifier or benefit.
Yeah, where the actual tool of you doing something with it is more of a strategy.
It can be both. I was going to have one of my strategies be sway the human.
Yeah.
Their minds, but of course humans aren't going to think it's me talking.
Oh, cool.
I'm a piece of jewelry, I'm a rock.
Yeah, and like you mentioned too that you were a part of jewelry as well. So, and one of your strategies might also play off of the jewels.
Well, I have roll with it, so that's one way I can move. And another one of my strategies is sway the human.
Wow. I love it. Sorry, roll with it's just hilarious. Okay.
I need a third strategy.
So
okay,
so third one for myself is a built-in radio.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might help you. I'm not too sure.
Okay. So you have a built-in radio.
Yeah.
What type of radio is it? Could my telepathy connect me to your radio?
What would we call that? It's just like a mind radio?
Well, not necessarily, because we're both rocks, in a sense. What if
both of you, yeah. So, maybe something to do with wavelengths anyway. Maybe it's, let's say it's a crystal radio where it's just powered by rocks, so that's how you can tune in with it.
I love it. Crystal radio.
So we'll say maybe you can talk out through me through the radio.
Let's see. And I'm going to give myself an offensive move called Black Eye. So I would have called it about this size.
Great.
Do you have telekinesis as well?
Ooh.
Because then you can just throw yourself.
Huh?
Then you can just throw yourself.
You can throw yourself.
He was throwing myself in. Someone, kind of combining that with roll with it, Basically, it means I can move myself.
Okay.
But if it was telekinesis, that means I could move other things too.
I wonder would psychic cover both of them?
If she took psychic, yeah. I mean, if she took psychic and wanted it to, it's kind of up to her.
Do it. Do it.
So.
Sorry, I'm thinking of other ways you could say it too. That'd be fun. You know, you could always be like maybe you're some kind of like mystic or shaman rock, or you're the chosen rock. You know, like,
I'm going to be the chosen rock.
That's great.
Okay, and if you have all those set, we move right on to soul skills, which is the 6 bubble underneath. There's 2 of them. They're called Imagine and Reason. So anytime you go to use a strategy, so just for an example, Heather, give me one of your strategies.
Roll with it.
Roll with it. Okay, so let's say basically that there's a hill in front of you, and there's a bunch of stone golems that are in your way. Right? And you need to get to the top of the hill because at the top is maybe a fancy jewel that you need. So I'm going to ask you which one of your strategies would help you, and you're going to say, I'm going to use roll with it. I'm going to bowl them down like a bowling ball. And I would say, okay, well, is that a perfect use of what you were going for when you made roll with it? Like roll into a stone ball and knock things out of your way? In my head, that says yes. So I feel like that's a reasonable use of it. Now, if you said, okay, well, I'm going to use roll with it, so I'm going to walk up to them, and whatever they say to me, I'm just going to listen to what they say, and I'm just going to be like, oh, yeah, it's cool, man. I'm not going for that gem. I'm just going to roll with what they say and come off, unoffensive. And I'd be like, well, that's kind of a stretch of you rolling into a stone ball, but you played off of what the strategy's called. So I'd say that's an imaginative use of it. So that gives you a little idea how these work. Is anytime I feel like the strategy you're going to use is not a perfect fit, it's a use of it. Anytime it's a perfect fit, you got the tools you need, you got the time you need, the right environment, that kind of stuff, it's a reasonable use. So you have 10 points to spend between these 2 stats, Imagine and Reason. You're going to have to roll under the number you put there on a D10 to succeed. And every time you roll in the game, you're going to use one of these 2, so they're both very important.
All right. Say if you put one, like a single point into one of them, does that mean you can never succeed in them?
No, a 1 would succeed.
Okay.
It's got that sort of, a 1 always succeeds and a 10 always fails.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put 1 Imagine and 9 Reason.
Awesome. And you kind of tapped into the way that the game works very well for someone who's like who's kind of into power gaming or min-maxing. One of the best ways for them to do that in Dream Chaser is kind of like creating the situation that's best suited for how they go about doing things. So like in your case, if you can always make it so that you have exactly the perfect strategy for the perfect situation, it's always going to be Reason. So it's kind of a neat way.
So it suits me, so it's perfect.
Cool. Yeah. So a lot of times when I ask you which strategy you're going to use, you're kind of hoping for me to be like, oh, duh, this one, So,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And Heather? Yeah.
If I am doing something the exact way I phrased it in the strategy, I'd be making a Reason roll.
Yeah. Yeah, Reason is a direct use. Imagine is an indirect use or a stretch.
Okay.
Like using cooking to build a building. I'd be like, okay, well, how do you do that? And you'd be like, well, the plans are kind of like a recipe. And if I have a foreman, that's kind of like a sous chef. And if I just tell him to follow the recipe, it's kind of like me working in the kitchen. I'm like, well, that's a stretch, but it works, so.
Okay.
I just lost my thing for a second. Sorry.
So I put a 7 in Reason and 3 in Imagine.
Okay. All right, moving right along, we go on to health. So again, you're going to get 12 points this time. but there's 3 stats. Now, most of the time when you go to do things in the game, it's just going to be a 1 roll, and the 1 roll you make is going to succeed, or it's going to succeed with a bit of a catch, or it's going to fail, and we're going to escalate things. There's going to be more problems. But sometimes the story is going to demand that this is a tense situation. This is a boss battle. This is something that's very dramatic for our story, and I'm going to call it a challenge. And that's going to be kind of like a combat, if you will, whether it's social or mental or kind of cinematic. And when that happens, you have the possibility of being knocked out or defeated, discouraged, that kind of thing. And that's kind of where we get to the health scores. So you have mind, body, and spirit. A 4 would be an average in most situations. So you have 12 points, which could make you average in all 3. If you have a 1 or 2 in any of these, you could be easily defeated, like in 1 shot, in a combat situation of whatever, like a math test, a bully, or actually trying to, win the, like become prom king or something. You want to have whichever one of these kind of reflects your character's path for success should probably be the highest. So if you're a person who's going to talk a lot, manipulate people, charismatic person, you probably want a little more spirit. If you're a person that's going to fight, break, endure, chase, that's a body person. And if you are an investigator, a researcher, someone who's going to outsmart their enemies, trap them, that's more of a mind person.
I have 1 mind, 8 body, and 3 spirit.
Okay.
So I have a 6 in spirit, a 3 in body, and a 3 in mind.
Okay. And right, moving on. Relationships. Okay. So in Dream Chaser, you get 3 relationships. That allows you to have 1 group and 1 other thing, if you want, or 3 things. These are people, places, or things that are important to your character. They also tell me as the game master, hey, Pete, I want these in my story. They're important to me. So you have these labels that say true love, intimate, close, casual, contact. You pick that. I don't care which ones they are. They just tell me, hey, if it's true love, that person would die for you even if you don't want them to. It gives me an idea of your bond. A contact, a good example is like, maybe you're the sheriff in town and you want the mob boss or Injun Joe, the wanted guy in the story. You're not friends, but maybe you know where they are or you want them in the story. So, but they can be places. Like if you're a musician, maybe you write at Central Park or you write by waterfalls. They could be a dog, a cat, a pokeball, your favorite sword. Lucille's a common one. Not Lucille. I always talk about Negan. Is it Lucille? What's his bat's name?
From what?
In The Walking Dead?
Well, I have no idea.
Yeah. I think it's Lucille, unless I'm messing it up. But he's got a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. And for him, that gives him power, gives him authority. Maybe it makes him feel badass. So you're just going to come up with people, places, or things that are important to your character. If you want a group of something, it costs 2 of them. So, and each one of them has to have a tag. So a tag is like what you have for your character. It's just something that describes why they're valuable to your character. Like maybe you have your mom. You have your mom because she feeds you, or she gives you money, or you have a spouse, who gives you hope, or you have maybe you have a bloody wedding ring and it's revenge, or you have the Book of the Dead and the tag is intrigue or suspense or dread,
So how do these tags differ from the next one, belonging? Sorry, I'm skipping ahead, but I need to know for one of the things.
Sure. The belongings have no mechanical benefit, but by you inserting them on your character and having them, sometimes they're the most important things in the game. They're fun or iconic things that you have on your character, because the belongings, we assume you have anything basic you need, right? Or you have access to the stuff that your character has strategies for. But you might have the Book of the Dead, some ancient amulets, a photograph of a family from 1972, a $20 million blind trust. Something. I have a pet Gaiju. Like I have a pet Godzilla.
Nice.
Uh,
Okay.
Do we need each other as a relationship?
You do. One of your relationships will be the other person. They don't have to be identical. Like Toby, you might say, Heather's character, I am casual with her, because we share work secrets or something. And then she might say, I true love Toby's character, and she could put tag, he's the strongest rock I've ever met, so sometimes, you true love someone and they don't know you exist. Sometimes you think they're awesome and they think you're a sandbag, so they don't have to be reciprocal.
So, could one of my tags be another stone that's in the same setting with me?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
You could put a stone, but it'd probably be better for you to say, what their role was.
Yeah.
Like for each other, you don't have names yet, so if the one you use for each other, you're just gonna say Golem for Toby, and Toby, you're gonna say Rock for her, or Mystic, or the one,
The one rock.
Yeah. Yeah, you just revert to roles for now.
Okay. I'm getting a little punny with some of the ways that close is going to be my human, because I'm literally worn around her neck and she doesn't realize I'm conscious.
Ooh.
So close. How close can you get?
Oh, gotcha. I was waiting for the pun. I didn't get it right away. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And in intimate, for example, that doesn't have to be romantic. Alfred to Batman is intimate. A child to an uncle could be intimate. Anyone that you live with each other. In that case, that could be intimate, but it's up to you. You're just because I live on her doesn't mean she knows I exist, or I might like her, but she doesn't talk. We don't talk or anything.
She's useful.
Yeah.
I almost put her under belongings.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so great.
But
oh my god. This is my human.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's the best part, is that it has no mechanical benefit, but that would have been very important, right?
well,
Sorry, 1 second. My battery's on the device. I think it's dirty.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out if the gold chain I'm on should be one of my relationships or be one of my belongings.
Either one, yeah.
It could be one of my relationships if we're meaning to have this world have all metals and stones be sentient.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a belonging and still be that way. It just, it's more if it's got a real use for your character, then it'd be a relationship. Mechanical benefit for it, the tag on it would help you.
Yeah, I see that.
For example, the gold chain, the tag could be valuable or something. So maybe nobody messes with you being a rock, even though maybe they're messing with all the other rocks because you look valuable, and not just some rock. The gold chain maybe has some I don't know how to say the word, but metallurgy. It could have some properties, maybe you can shimmer or sparkle or dazzle.
Oh boy. Let's see.
But if you just want to be a part of a gold chain that you can come on and off of, that maybe you could use for barter or something, that could be a belonging.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking here. My two relationships are Melanie and Golem. Let's see. I'm going to want to hear what some of his tags are to see what direction we want to be taking this in. Fill out my remaining relationships, or my remaining relationships.
If you want to, you could also you could work on your belongings.
Okay.
You want at least one of them, but up to 3. They could be simple things like I'm always smoking a cigar, or I have a golden Zippo, or I always have a blue bandana or an eye patch, or they could be things that, like you were mentioning, that have, like things I said, like you have a gold locket with a picture in it, or something strange or bizarre.
Okay.
Like you're human, if you want that.
I would have.
Sorry, my phone died, so I was like, crap. No.
No problem.
Life, so I really think having her as a relationship is appropriate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's no wrong way. It just depends how you want to go about it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Toby, when you're ready, she wants to hear your relationship tags. What are you laughing about?
I'm thinking of stealing a skateboard. The problem with belongings is there isn't much I can carry as a 1-inch tall rock.
Sure. It could be stuff that are like lodged into you as well. Like if you are a rock, like maybe you have, I don't know, like you have dirt or sand, or you have like a metal rod that was jammed in, like a splinter of some kind. You have some precious ore within you. You could be covered in like tar or something. Well, maybe you're painted.
Maybe. I'll think about it.
What did you name? Did you make a name for the woman?
Melanie.
Melanie.
Yes. So if one of my belongings were to be Melanie's purse, does that mean there'd be some leeway as to what's in it?
Yeah, there would be. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, like somebody could write like bag of camping supplies, and there's nothing in their character that would make me think that they would have camping gear, so that's why they added that,
Well, and who knows what's in a woman's purse?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you see, that's fun too. That's a fun, creative way for you to be like, okay, I have this, and I'm like, where did you find that? Well, I got it out of her purse. Well, why would she have it in her purse? And you're like, well, because maybe she does this. And I'll be like, oh, okay.
Maybe she has kids and one of them shoved it in there for no reason.
Exactly. So why does Melanie have crayons,
Oh, really, it could be anything, and I could use the answer her kids shoved it in.
Yeah.
Dynamite!
I mean, do you have kids?
No, I'm the youngest out of 5 kids, though, so I'm closer in age to my nieces and nephews.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So
when you were saying that, I was like, you sound like you know this pretty well, so...
I grew up around my siblings' kids rather than around my siblings.
Oh, sure,
I
yeah.
grew up around them too, but yeah. Okay. Did we lose him?
He said his phone battery was dying, so he was switching up.
Okay. Ah.
But of course, I mean, if you need a bathroom break or anything, while we're waiting for him, if you need to get up, stretch, whatever you need to do.
So, what would a casual relationship be like?
A lot of times I think of those like coworkers, people that you see on a day-to-day basis. Like maybe if you always go to the Starbucks, it could be like the person behind the counter. You walk by a newspaper stand every day, or the hot dog guy.
And I notice there's 2 columns here. Does that mean I could have 2 who are intimate?
Yeah. I know they're pretty tiny, but yeah, the idea was just keeping the theme of having 2.
Okay. So, I'm going to have one of my relationships be Rufus. He is Melanie's dog,
Oh, cool.
and he can carry Melanie too. So he's kind of a larger dog.
Rufus.
Yep.
Melanie's dog. And what did you say about it? What could he carry?
Melanie's purse.
Carry purse. And is that her tag? The Rufus's tag? He can carry the purse?
Sure.
It's kind of fitting, right? Because you have the belonging. Actually, since if the purse was a belonging, I wouldn't make you take the tag. You could just belonging is one of the benefits is that they're always there when you need them. So we could just assume that the dog has it, but we would assume it's wherever you needed it to be when you needed it to be there. That's kind of more of what it's about.
All right. Like I said, though, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to have belongings when I'm in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can assume that either Rufus or Melanie has the purse.
Yeah.
One or the other is not there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true too. Is that I mean, you were thinking. I mean, it helps to make sense if it could be on your person. But yeah, if you wrote down like baseball bat, it would be there when you needed it. Maybe not on your person, but it would be around.
Well, I'm also telekinetic, so I technically don't need Rufus.
Yeah.
See this little rock rolling along with this purse floating. Oh boy. I might not do the dog then. Oh. Wait to see what his relationship tags are.
Yeah. It's pretty fun though, right? I mean, one of the things I'm surprised by is the character creation was I was initially surprised by is how much fun people had with it. Because it's so much you're just being creative, and you're given free reign. Hopefully you kind of saw that, like, there was never a time where I was like, no.
Yeah.
And that's kind of big, is in most games, you get a person to sit at the table because you're like, hey, you can be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. And then we kind of sometimes just keep telling them no. Can I be this? No, not really. Oh, we don't really have that place. So you kind of start putting them in a box, and then they don't always get to
Nope.
be what they were hoping to be. So, hey,
So,
Is
welcome
it
back.
working? It's
Yeah.
working. Oh, thank God. I had to. Okay, my phone died. My phone died, but it won't charge because Google Hangouts use too much energy. So I had to grab my laptop, then charge that, and then try to set up Google Hangouts. It's awesome. I haven't even started yet. All right, so where were we?
So she's waiting for you to hear your relationship tags. She's curious of what your relationships do for you.
Okay, so for close, I have the metal faction, and my tag is Unity.
Oh,
Nice.
that's a great one.
Okay, let me tell you one of my tags. An intimate tag is your character, Golem, and you are the voice. Like, I haven't tagged with many other rocks except this voice.
That's really cool because for my tag for you, I have communication. So, all right, I have you down as casual though. I have you down as Rock One.
That's fine.
That's my nickname for you.
I love too that you kind of also put in place like there's a possibility that like there's a metal faction and the rocks, like you may not be a unified force of like stones, you know.
It's like Earth thing, so it's great.
Yeah. Now the metal faction, that would be a group, right? So that would take up 2 of your relationships. What did you want to get out of them? What's a good tag for them?
I have it down as Unity.
Oh, that's right.
So it's like a group thing. So it's like you know, if one has your back, the other has your back, and it's just like, you know, all that kind of.
Oh. Okay. Metal. Okay.
Under close, I have Melanie, and her tag is Explorer.
Explorer.
Wait, your human is an explorer?
Meaning, not that she likes to explore new things, which is why she got the idea of a voice comes inside her head saying, you should go here. Oh, I just have this good idea to go here. Why not?
That's cool. I like that. So do you only have 2 or do you have 3?
I have 2. I'm trying to think of a third one.
Oh, okay.
And then Toby, if you could work on your, I was gonna say you could work on your belongings.
Oh yeah.
Just you want to come up with at least 1, but up to 3. They're like iconic things that are, you know, you always want to have around if you need them. Things that may not make sense for your character, because we assume you have everything your character would need normally. You know, but if you have, you know, some ancient sword, or you have some, you know, talking cloak, or some crazy like AI prototype, or you know, an asteroid or a comet that crashed on, you know, some strange metals. You have Rock 2, you know, because you talk to Rock 1. You know,
that down. I'm putting that down. Rock 2. So I think it's a talking rock, but I'm wondering why it doesn't talk to me. So I'm like, why aren't you talking to me? But it's just a regular rock.
I love this.
Rock 2.
Let's see.
Okay, so I have a light crystal, a metallic scrap, and rock 2.
Okay.
A metallic scrap. Okay.
I have a gold chain, Melanie's purse, and a death laser. I'm still trying to figure out my last relationship tag, though.
You took her purse?
Yes.
Oh my God.
You
You're
say.
a thief.
Well, what isn't in a woman's purse? I'm thinking practically here.
Did you say death laser?
Melanie's neck. Death laser.
I was like, I love that we were talking about the purse, but she totally slipped death laser in there. Don't mind the death laser, but what's in the purse? You know.
Like a lightsaber. It's like, whoa. Crazy. Lightsaber.
I'm trying to figure out if it would be best for the story to have my last contact be an animal or be another rock.
If you want to, you could hold it, and you could, just make it up when we're playing.
Actually, I'm gonna have Jerry the squirrel be a
Yes. Oh my god.
tag. Will be all over the place in many ways.
Cherry the squirrel.
Here you go. So I have your scroll right here.
Nice.
All over. Cherry the squirrel.
Hi, Jerry.
He's kind of music though. Oh my god.
Okay.
What does it sound like now? I wonder. He's like, he just cackles.
I don't know. Would he be casual or more of a con? I think he'd be casual because, like, hi.
I love the waving.
I like Monkey Kong. I like Pinocchio as well. It's great. But yeah, we'll keep him there. He's the third player right there. That's just perfect.
There you go, Jerry the squirrel.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the relationships, belongings are good, I believe. Okay.
Yeah.
So characters are made. We need names.
Oh yeah.
So think of names, and then when you're ready, roll both of your d10s. In this case, they're two different colors. We're going to do this as part of what we call the vision roll. So one of them will be for your imagine, and one of them will be for your reason. It's the only unique roll in the game.
Okay.
So you go and pick which one's which, and then roll both dice, and you want to roll under those scores. One under your imagine, another one under your reason. And just tell me how many successes you get. 0, 1, or 2.
I'm trying to think of a name though.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I have no idea. Like,
what would a loyal steel golem aligned with the metal factions in a world where all of the elements are trapped? What would you be called?
I think it would be something like very official or something generic as well.
You also said you were a puppet. So there could be something to that. Like maybe you don't have like a strong name. Maybe you have like a weak or subservient or like a number or something or a label.
But there's a name other humans that the humans have called you, and then there's a name you call yourself. You've also said you're the beacon too.
Oh.
So you could have like name you wise a name that the stupid humans call you.
All right, so what the humans call me is JCL00T. But I just take that and I just go by Loot.
Loot, okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That's awesome. I'm Eleanor.
Eleanor the Pebble. Rock wand.
I think I'd do like a gemstone or something like that.
Oh yeah, what kind of rock are you? Are you a diamond or?
I'd probably say I'm something like a fire agate.
Oh.
That's rare. That's really cool. Oh, you want to roll as well, don't you? Shoot, sorry.
It's okay. So both of you, when you're ready, roll your dice.
Just two dice, is it?
Yep. 2 10-sided dice.
All right, so I got a 10 and a 5.
Okay. You want one of them to be for your imagine and one of them for your reason?
All right. I'll put the 5 as my reason and the 10 as my imagine.
Okay.
Because I have one imagine, so.
Oh, sure, yeah. So you got one success. Okay.
Okay.
I have a 6 and a 2.
Okay. Which one is for your imagine and which one's for your reason?
I would say the 6 is for my reason and the 2 is for my imagine.
Okay. How many successes is that if you have to roll under? 2?
2.
Okay. So what we're doing here is we're doing something we call vision roles. Vision roles are meant to influence the story that's about to happen. So we know that this is a story about freeing the elements. And the first chapter of that story, or milestone, is about showing humans the light. So what happens here is I'm going to ask each of you 2 questions. One question is kind of as a player of the game, and one question is, like of what your character would do, kind of get you in the head of your character. And what we do is we have you roll so that we can figure out sort of a turn order of how to do this, and also how to delegate the benefit afterwards, which you'll see in a second. So it kind of becomes an initiative order right now. So we're going to go from 0 successes to 2. So in that case, Toby, you're first. So the idea is, in a story about freeing the elements, we want to talk about showing humans the light. So what's stopping us from achieving that goal? What's the problem? And this is you as a player. So you could say something short and sweet, just throw something out there, or you could go down a road if you have something more in mind.
I think it would be something similar to what it is in real life, where people are too occupied by technology or kind of, I think they're too lazy, basically, because they have machines doing all this, and they have elements outside, like harvesting crap. So they're like, oh yeah, we couldn't give a damn,
Yeah, so they're kind of apathetic, right? They're too occupied, they're too lazy. For whatever reason, they don't. You can't show them the light because they just don't think it's important, right?
Yeah.
Or it takes work. Yeah. Okay. So the second question is, if your character had to try to show them the light, looking at your strategies, how would you try to do that if it was a people they were just too lazy, too occupied?
I think for the type of character he is, maybe build something that would act as a beacon.
Build something like a beacon. Okay. So you had 1 success. So the benefit you get out of a vision roll is you're going to get a temporary tag. Okay. And it's going to reflect, if that situation happens for your character, you're a little better prepared for it. So when you get 0 successes, I make it up for you, the guide. If you have 1 success, the other players make it up for you. And if you have 2 successes, you can make it up yourself. So you can kind of pick exactly what you want for your character. So in this case, Heather, Toby's talking about, the reason we can't show the humans the light is because they're just too occupied. They're too lazy. Maybe they don't care. So he said, if I build something like a beacon, maybe I can get them to literally see the light or get their attention. So how would you describe a character that's trying to build something to illuminate others or inspire others? And you could say stuff like, hey, he'd have to be crafty, or he'd have to be shiny, or he'd have to use, he'd have to be choosy. But yeah, you could even be, you don't have to give him something helpful. That's the nice thing. The funny thing about being the other players, you guys could all rib on each other too. Like, I think it'd be funny if you were a pyromaniac. That doesn't make any sense. Well, that's what we think. So,
the people.
Yeah.
No, I would say instead of crafty, I'd say he's industrious.
Okay. So what you're going to do is, so Toby, on the right column of your tags, write industrious. And then the benefit, Heather, is that you got to hear everything he said. So when I ask you the same questions, you had more time to think, and you heard the questions, and you heard what he said. So you could be like, ditto what he said, or hey, how about that, but this? Or you could totally go in your own direction, because these are all hypothetical.
Okay.
So same thing for you. What's stopping us from showing the humans the light? What's the problem?
I would say that they don't listen. They can't recognize they're hearing us, at least ones like me.
Oh, okay. So you said don't listen, but you said kind of like it's not that they can't hear you.
They can, but they don't recognize it.
Oh, okay. So don't recognize it. So do you think if they don't recognize it, is it a thing like they don't why don't they listen then?
Well, have this little thought pop into their head, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it's like a random thought in their head. They don't know where. Yeah, there's no authority. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, hear but don't obey. Hear, don't obey. And I'm just writing it a way that I understand it. So, okay. All right. And if that was the situation, looking at your character sheet, how do you think your character would try to show them the light? If they can hear you, but they're just not obeying.
You know, I think I need to amass an army.
We would have to show them with force.
It's an army of pebbles.
Humans that will listen.
Army of
One of
humans.
my strategies is sway the humans. Or sway
Okay. So, give yourself a tag that reflects a character that could amass an army. You know, I mean, obviously you could be someone who's got leadership qualities, or, you know, admirable, or, you know, you have a just cause, but whatever you want to put it as.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
So,
going to say that I'm shiny.
shiny. All right. If we have rocks, somebody's got to be shiny.
So which one would that, you said it's on the right side, would that be a negative tag or vision tag?
It's considered a vision tag, but that right column is for both.
Okay.
Yes, there is a little gamesmanship about where you place it, but you guys won't see it in like a one shot. So
Okay.
I don't believe you will, so we can avoid it. Okay. So anybody need the bathroom break or anything before we get started, or we good to go?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I
Then
didn't.
I was like, I kind of do, but I'll just okay. So we'll take we'll take 2 or 3, and then we'll be back when we get started.
Okay, thanks so much. Got some snacks.
Yay!
Oh my god. You know, I've only played one game of this with people, but I've loved it. It's very,
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
and a good job. It was really well done. Like it's great. I love it.
Yeah, what I love is I love all the unique little stories that don't otherwise get told, that the game pulls out of people.
Like, there's no constraints really, so it's great.
It works out good too when we go to places like conventions, because the word of mouth is always fantastic, because people will be like, what game did you play? Because people will be like, oh, we played a game about this. Like, you know, hey, we brought back Game of Thrones for an 8th season. Well, what game was that? You know? So just unique stuff.
Yeah. Do you think it has like picked up? Has it gotten like popular?
It's doing pretty well. You know, it's hard because you know, you know, if you're not a big dog, it's hard to break out because there is so much out there. But it's doing really well for itself, especially you know, me being a first-time publisher and stuff. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, compared to things like D&D or Pathfinder, it's just like that's a huge scale, and it's so hard to climb. But yeah, I think it did well. You know? Yeah,
and I'm working really hard to continue to push it. I definitely find that, you know, the big part about it is it's got a lot of utility. You know, it does make playing in Game Master life easier. That's a little harder to sell because people don't necessarily, you know, you get sold stuff like, hey, be like Space Marines. And I'm kind of being like, hey, how about a game where it like really works well for you and your group? You know, like.
Yeah. I mean, the release was great.
Yeah.
Well, what you say is like it's easy to pick up. It's not crunchy. It's versatile.
Yeah.
And so with those things, I mean, I think you can really target the Fate audience.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, one of the big things, right, is it's a goal-oriented game, and I mean every role-playing game is, right? You sit down but the GM comes up with it, and most games don't tell the GM how to do that. They just kind of like, hey, here's the setting and here's some characters. Now tie them together with a goal. So this game kind of says, hey, why don't we start with that? That make everyone's life a lot easier. Okay.
Well, so, it's a good way to get them involved as well, because then they can do what they want to do, you know?
Yeah. That's a big one, you know, because player investment, I think that's really important. Because it's so hard, you know, games these days, the hard part is at home with your group, it's the scheduling, it's the pacing, it's the getting everyone together. And if you give them what they want, hopefully they'll be invested and they'll show up and, you know, you'll have good games.
Like,
yeah.
What other game can you be a talking gem?
Not very many.
Okay, so story. So our game begins on an island. Anybody have an awesome name for an island? I'm thinking something like biblical. I like the idea of I can't say Rapture because Rapture was actually, I think that's BioShock. Let's see, another one. What about, let's just say Haven, right? That's a pretty common but useful word. So there's an island called Haven. And the world in mind is a post-apocalyptic world in which there was something that ravaged the world. And it would have been more of a modern setting, except for whatever destroyed the world had basically created massive natural disasters. We already see in the modern day world that they're escalating, but something basically was a catalyst that drove them further. So we have a world specifically on this island that is in some ways primitive, and there is a witch that is world renowned that has sealed away the elements. She's known as the witch because it is a world that doesn't believe in magic and doesn't believe in witches and warlocks. But she has created a stone prison that entraps the elements on this island called Haven. And the rest of the world sends tributes and sends sacrifices. Most of the tributes are that it requires a large amount of resources to continue the spell. And rocks are being gathered, stone, from all over the world, that is constantly being fed as a fuel for this sort of entrapment, this sort of large, giant, stone-hovering ball that glows light, that contains the elements. And on this island, most of that who works for the witch directly are this metal faction. You, with all this stone that's basically continually contributed, a large amount of metal has been brought here, and over time has been animated to be her sort of servants. Obviously, she pulls you from the stone that is then therefore used for the entrapment, and has placed you as sort of these people who do her bidding and keep the machine, if you will, going. And the rest of the world is beginning to rebuild, but though that's not something that either of you know much about. For Melanie is the witch's apprentice.
Oh.
She was chosen at lottery and brought here as the person who will take up her mantle of the witch. So Melanie, obviously carrying a special stone of her own, something that is not been contributed to the feed, if you will. You've been very close to the whole project. But you're not Melanie. You're the stone who sees everything right from the right hand of the witch that hangs around the neck of Melanie. So on the island of Haven, the two of you are there. We have J.C. Lutz. The people that are here dress almost primitively. It's one of the ways that the witch sort of keeps everyone, I was going to say manipulated, and maybe that's the best way to say it. Here you are a sacrifice, as in you are a person who is donated to the island, who is here to help continue the island, and you worship the witch. So there's a strange, almost cult-like living that is on this island that is otherwise somewhat tropical, though the middle of it is kind of cored out with this giant glowing stone that is probably like, 30 by 30 feet in diameter. So, like 10 meters, 10 by 10? And it hovers above the ground maybe 10 feet or so. And it just consistently rolls as if it was a giant globe. So, with the island, there is, first of all, the metal faction that continually is feeding the stone into this almost furnace of this glowing object. So let's start with J.C. Lute over there. So Lute, you are standing amongst this behemoth of an object that you can hear the waters sort of crash along the inside. You can hear the sparkles and crackles of the flames that roar within. You can hear the wind as if it's the strongest winds, the winds of tornadoes and hurricanes. It just crashes. And it's this weird medley of this raging different sounds of the worst natural disasters you can imagine that, just depending on where the globe is spinning, crash against the side that is nearest you every so often. It's so loud that it's like a large white noise around you and the other, probably dozen metal, I don't want to call you figures, but we'll say metal people for now, who in ways are almost like shoveling stone up into the air, at which it just kind of gravitates and continuously melds to this ball and almost melt to the outside of it. But everyone here it's like machine work. If they don't continually throw it up in the air, this would burn out and the disasters would be released very quickly. And you, sir, are in charge of making sure that doesn't happen. You are like the foreman here for the time being.
Oh, God. I have a job.
Oh, joy.
No pressure.
So, first things first, let's make sure that everything's going according to plan. How do you keep them in line? How do you keep the machine running? Each one of your strategies helps you do that. Or belongings or relationships.
I think maybe radio, because I can just transmit wavelengths to across the robots or bots. So I can tell them, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that without moving. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Okay. So to give us a roll and get us kind of in the gear of how we mechanically play the game, you're going to roll both your d10s. One of them from now on will be your soul skill die. So it'll be under either imagine or reason, I'll tell you. And the other one's going to be under one of your strategies. So just pick which one's which ahead of time. And then we know it is radio. And this sounds like a reasonable use of it. So I was going to say, is this the Kevin Inarelli curse? Because he's a backer and playtester who has said multiple times, like, dude, crit fail, first roll, so often.
Yeah, I got team 5, so, oh wait, no, I can go reason, can't I?
It is reason, so that's good. So
I
it's
get one. I get one.
reason radio. Okay. So what just happened is we call this, anytime you roll doubles, it's a critical, right? So it is an exaggerated version of whatever the result would be. And in Dream Chaser, there's 3 results. You either get 2 successes, everything you wanted happens, 1 success, so that you succeed, but there's some kind of a catch, or none, and everything gets worse. So what Toby rolled here is 2 5s. So it's a pair, but 1 succeeded under his reason, but the other one was not under his radio. So what happens is we ask all the players one by one, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? And what's the best possible thing that could happen? And both happen. So with the worst possible thing, we start with Toby because I expect him to give me the weakest answer. So in radio transmitting to the other stone bots, and keeping them in line and in tune with the constant flow of stone to the world disaster containment device, what's the worst possible thing that could happen?
Let's see. I'd say that it translates, or it sends off the wrong signal, so they end up doing something completely different, like digging a hole into the ground or something, then end up making like a giant crater. Just for no reason.
Gosh. Okay. So, and then Heather, you've heard what he said. So maybe that happens. Maybe what you say happens. Maybe both happens. What do you think is the worst possible thing that could happen?
I would say that his signal misfires, ricochets off of my telepathy, and gets channeled into all of the little human minions at this island instead of the robot.
Awesome.
Whoa.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So the worst possible thing that happens is that all of the stone bots, instead of throwing up the stone as they normally would, the stone stops flowing up to the containment device, and they start grabbing stones and they start separating them out into piles around them and digging underneath their spots. So they are making these little, there's about a dozen of these folks, and they are making little sections where that, for whatever reason, of course, Toby, you don't understand what they're doing because they heard you wrong. What do you do while that's happening? Because that's the only thing you would see immediately.
I think I would go over to the closest one and try to check what's wrong with it.
Okay.
Or what's wrong with him.
So Stonebot 2, right, looks up to you.
So I don't know if I'm able to talk, actually. Will I say to use the radio to talk, or just like regular talking?
Oh, wow, that's a really great idea. Yeah, let's say they can't talk. Let's say you are the one who can talk because you have the radio.
Yeah.
So it's like one-way communication. That's
maybe
awesome.
you can send like signals back or something, or like just wavelengths back, and just like only respond to me. So I'm going to say to the other bot, I'm just like, hey, what the hell are you doing? You're meant to be throwing it up to the orbit in the sky.
Yeah.
It's like, this is bad what you're doing.
So probably in this case, they kind of, it's not sign language, but they just, non-verbally speak to you, right? So it's pointing at the thing, and then pointing at the stones around them, and pointing at the ground, and then pointing back at the thing. And you really don't understand what it means right now, as you realize in horror that all of them are doing the same thing. Heather.
My first day, I fucked up.
Heather, you are, obviously, you would normally be with the witch, but right now the witch has some kind of prayer going on, where she is just sort of meditating amongst this sort of like antler-like bone structure thing that she routinely meditates in front of. It's a weird mix of like sort of bone and wood. It's not like, something out of like, the Wicker Man. It's not some like culty weird thing, but it's this weird sort of like little structure she has. It's not overly tall, but it looks like kind of mixed brambles that kind of sticks almost like the background, like an organ, like an organ, like piano.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like at the base of it. That's almost like a rug that she's sitting on. It's got a couple steps that lead up to it, and she's facing this sort of walled, mixed thorny thing, and behind her is about 30 to 50 people who are all sort of just like on their hands and knees, almost in sort of like a Muslim prayer, are kind of chanting and religiously like worshiping. Which, I mean, you know all well that it's something that they praise her as like a prophet, and she praises her, that she focuses that praise onto this sort of idea, which is her magic. You are nearby. Would you find yourself praying with the others? Would you be walking around observing?
Are you thinking about Melanie's neck, or am I just off of Melanie's neck and Melanie's over there praying?
You are on Melanie's neck, and I'm kind of giving you free rein to say what Melanie would be doing.
Well, I would say Melanie is wandering about. You know, she's someone who explores her surroundings, and you know, it's probably also wise for the witch to leave someone on watch. You know, not just if people dislike her, then she'd have some people not in the prayer circle.
Certainly. And maybe she needs someone to, like, you kind of have to, she needs someone who can basically be in charge while she has her prayers. I mean, there's nothing more important to her than that. So from what you know is that it seems like this routine prayer helps her gather her energy that she performs this magic with, which to you is really still that. It's like she does do things that are special and amazing and awesome that you don't understand fully. But she does it through sort of this gathering of prayer that she focuses through this shrine. And if she doesn't do this, you know, twice a day, you know, if she does it religiously, like she would never without fail. Like if the island was burning, she would still try to do this to gather her power. So Melanie's walking around as the individuals start getting up and jumping to their feet, very alert, and looking at each other, almost like in astonishment. And some of the figures that are not like family oriented, you know, that are not grouped, that are just individuals, start running towards the giant sphere that, of course, you can see in the distance. You're probably, you know, maybe a few hundred feet or 100 meters away, so it's big and large and within view. But, you know, you're far enough away that nobody could really mess with it without rushing over there. And you start seeing, you know, 10 of the 50 run there immediately, and others starting to look at each other and run in that direction as well.
Okay, so are they actually, so this thing is actually crushing up rocks and destroying them to be a part of this mass?
It's almost kind of making stone into a fluid sort of, you know, when you melt metal, right? It almost becomes like a thick liquid. It's kind of like got that going on, but it's rock and stone up in the air.
Okay.
And Melanie obviously is also affected by this, and she, you can tell by being on her that she kind of panics, and she runs towards the witch and looks at the people and looks at the witch and looks at the thing and then starts running towards the thing, as she obviously is sort of doesn't know what to do.
Okay.
Do you have any strategies that would help you understand what's going on?
What's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am the chosen rock.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm the chosen rock. I could either do chosen rock or sweet human.
Either would be fine, but either how would they help you, or what would you like to do with them?
So I would like to use my intuition as the chosen rock to figure out why everyone is so upset.
Okay. Using your intuition as the chosen rock. That's awesome. Okay, so why don't you roll Imagine and Chosen Rock?
So imagine and okay.
So 1d10 under Imagine and a different d10 under Chosen Rock.
Okay. So I matched my Imagine.
Okay.
So I got a 3. And then, actually, I got 2 3s.
Gosh. Okay, so we have to resolve the first one before we can really go into yours. I was trying to feed us as much information for that critical before we finished it up, but we kind of need to finish it up so we can start on yours. All right, so the other one succeeds, right, under the strategy? The 3 is under chosen rock?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So, going back to the initial scene, right? We kind of know where you're at, what's happening with the people there. We don't exactly understand what's going on in their heads, but we talked about what's the worst possible thing that could happen is that the contraption device is not being fed. And we have some weird haywire message that's going on. But we never talked about what's the best possible thing that could happen. So while he was trying to send these stone bots the message of what they should do, as his first day as the new sort of foreman on the most critical project in all of the world.
In real life.
He did something very, very bad, but he also did something very, very good. What do you think that could be? And we'll start with you, Heather.
So are you talking about good as far as the function on the project, or good as far as some of our milestones and goals?
It could really be either. It's really up to the eye of the beholder. It could be for him, or it could be for the story.
Okay. I'm going to say a little manifestation of one of the elements sneaks out and flees into a corner to talk to him later.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have a preference?
Sorry, I don't know that.
Did you hear that? Alexa, stop.
I guess I don't know if I have a preference. I think it would be amusing for it to. Let's see. It would be amusing for it to be a little bit of the fire element.
Okay. So we know that a bit of the fire is starting to fuel out of a fissure, or maybe there's a part where the stone itself is not fully encompassing a little section, and just a smither of flame is flying through a crack. But we're not done. Toby, what's the best possible thing that could happen?
Oh God.
Either with that flame coming out, or for your character.
Well, my character's probably in the dumps right now because he's just like, crap, I'm the worst ever. So, I think maybe the robots just stop digging down. You know, maybe not even going back to work. Just stop digging down.
Okay.
Stop digging holes, people. God.
So they stop digging down. And so the one that's talking to you is the only one who stopped digging initially, but the others do stop as you're trying to understand what this one was trying to do. And it looked like he was trying to make some kind of like stone foundation in the spot he was in. So, and you kind of notice as you look around that they're all kind of making a little formation of stones that seem to make a pattern around the contraption device. And they seem to be trying to make the stone piles they have into like almost like a buried pillar of some kind.
Okay, like an altar kind of thing.
They're doing something weird. Like it seems like there's some method to the madness that's going on here. But as that happens, a flame slithers out, wrapping around the contraption as this little sort of will-o-wisp that's kind of flying, and flies right into the back of you. And you find yourself engulfed in flames.
Oh no.
Though, as a steel golem, you are in no pain.
Don't touch me, don't touch me.
Yes. So, of course, we have to go to Heather because we have the other critical buff to deal with. So, Heather, you were trying to, sorry, Rock One was trying to understand what is going on with these people. And of course, you rolled the best of times, worst of times. So what's the worst possible thing that could happen?
So it's my three match. My imagine is 3.
You got to be under.
It got to be under. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the worst possible thing that'll happen?
Yes, you got one of each. So we're going to do the same thing we did for Toby.
I would say that I have no clue what anyone's thinking.
Okay. And then, Toby, what do you think? What's the worst possible thing that can happen when she's trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with the people? What's going on with my host, right?
I think that is actually pretty accurate. You know, like you being deaf to the world basically is pretty shit for a stone, you know. So I'd say that would be good. But I'm trying to think, is there anything worse than that? Maybe you get dropped in the panic.
Oh.
Don't worry, there's still a dog.
They're like, you're deaf, and you're like, oh God, no. Oh.
Now, if I get dropped, do I fall into Melanie's clothing or do I fall onto the ground?
Okay. Yeah, what I like is that, yeah, so she starts running, and as she runs, other people start running with her, and her dangling necklace gets caught, and someone who's basically running wildly with their hands, and the necklace sort of like snaps in a certain spot, and she, in her haste, reaches up with her left hand to stop it from the whole chain falling off, but the stone falls off. And you see this mass of people, kind of like like a stampede, sort of running around you and over you and past you. Nobody steps on you. But as they run on by, your vision is kind of obscured as you're limited in what you can see now because you're obviously on the ground and there's all these people running around in commotion. And the static message of everyone's minds as you're trying to put it together is just this jumble of panic. So you just kind of hear the thundering stampede of people moving, and in your head it's this stampede of thoughts that's just all panic, panic, panic. So you don't know what's going on, except for they all think it's really, really bad, which gives you some idea what you think's going on. So, what's the best possible thing that could happen? So Toby, you go first.
In that situation, since she's already on the ground, I think.
And she used the chosen rock, right? So that's the kind of only frame we have here is she's the chosen rock. So she tried to intuitively understand the situation. So what's the best possible thing she could get out of that?
I'm not sure about that, but the most grounded thing that can happen is if she got kicked or carried to where the stuff is happening. You know, instead of her being back at the witch, she could be up near the center just by people running over her, kicking her or whatever. So she's near Melanie anyway because of the people just kicking the stones along or just dragging the stones with their feet. So she'll probably be close by to where the rotor is, so.
Heather, what do you think?
That is.
I would actually say that Eleanor stays near where the witch is. Because you said the witch was still praying.
Oh, yeah, she is.
So she's actually was dropped near there. And it gives her an opportunity to mess with what's going on. Okay.
So you get kicked forward to the side, off to the left, off to the right, and then punt 3 steps back, right? And you thump, 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 are rolling. And, since there's Rufus, right? Well, we won't say it's Rufus. Another random dog picks you up, kind of, puts you both ways, wondering what you are because you're a shiny rock. And then, of course, looses you in a direction. And you find yourself just thump, thump, thump on this sort of pedestal that she has, this sort of shrine that she worships on. And yeah, what you can tell looking at her is that she is completely unaware of what's going on. She is in her own little world.
Okay.
Intuitively, though, you also know that she knows, like she is aware of outside of her body, but she looks as if she knows nothing about what's going on.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to do with that?
Well, first of all, I have a logistical question.
Yeah.
So in this world, is magic and psionics the same thing, or are they different and understood differently?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? Toby?
Oh, she said no. I think it's like a fine line between it because of they're so separated from the outside world. The way they're on an island.
Yeah.
I think he's just like maybe she's like a tech genius or something, and it's all an actress. It could be anything. And they're like, "Oh, this is magic. This is amazing."
Well, I'm asking because I'm wondering if she'd be able to feel my use of my telekinesis, or if she wouldn't. If they're separate things.
Do you want her to?
I do not. I want to start unraveling the seams in her robe.
Oh, awesome. All right. So let's frame that into a strategy roll. So what strategy would help you do that?
Since my telekinesis is wrapped up in Chosen Rock, I'm going to roll that one again.
Okay. Chosen Rock. Because you don't know the difference of the two, like you mentioned, let's say it's Imagine.
Okay.
You're like, I hope she doesn't know. I'm going to focus on her not knowing, but I'm going to,
So I rolled under Imagine.
Great.
But I rolled over Chosen Rock.
Okay. So do you have any tags that would help you in this situation? Would any of your tags help you be better at this?
Let's see. Would I do telepathic or determined?
They're both, I think, pretty good.
Yeah. It's really up to how you want to describe how it helps your character.
Okay, I'm going to say, telepathic.
Okay. And how does that help you?
Well, that helps me for one. It helps me focus my energy on this task, even though my concentration was wavering with all of the commotion going on.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you can kind of focus in on the... okay. That kind of sounds a little more like determined, though, than telepathic.
Okay.
Oh, I guess if you said you just have a focus because you're good at that or something, that makes sense, too. All right. Go and re-roll the die that did the chosen one die and see if it succeeds now.
I love that. The chosen one die.
Yeah.
It succeeds.
Okay, great. So it's worth mentioning at this point, since we had the first roll that had a tag use, is that we have these character sheets, and then on the character sheets, let me see if I can, of course I closed that. Let me see if I have one real quick. Or if you want to do me a favor, hey Toby, how about you hold your sheet up? Can you, oh, there you go, or Heather.
Yeah. Right.
And then at the bottom, there's this little chart that says the benefits of belief. So what's cool about that, Heather, can you say something just to make sure it shows you? Okay, so just above her head, there was a little chart that says benefits of belief. And Heather, you can put it down. It allows you to re-roll using your tags or even to buy successes when you need them to influence the story for your character or for you as the player, right? It's another part of the game being collaborative. So every character starts with a 4 belief, and 4 in this game is kind of like that average across the board number. So you start out with 4 belief, which allows you to re-roll up to one failed die if you need it, or also to buy a success if you need it for your character when you need it to influence the story. Like you're just sick of failing, kind of thing. It costs 2 belief to buy any of those successes. Any of the tag uses like we saw so far are free. You just have to have a high enough belief. And you gain belief by achieving these character milestones that we have. So as we get closer and closer to the end of the game, the more belief your character will probably have, which will allow you to do greater and greater abilities. So it's kind of like, it's a reflection of your character believing in themselves and believing in their goal and achieving their dream kind of thing. So that's the whole story of that. You can never buy your way out of criticals. So I didn't mention it when we had criticals. But you can buy your way even after you fail the die and use your tags if you want to. But it's always good to know that the more times you use your tags are also the more times you might critical and be locked into a situation for better or worse. Okay? All right. So moving right along. You had 2 successes. Yeah, go for it.
Can a belief go below 1?
No, it would just be at 1.
All right, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. You said that, and I was like, there was a time when it was a 0 and a 1. I'm like, did I say the right one? I'm going to stick with you. You still have 1, even if you spend it. Okay. Okay. So, Heather, you were trying to use that your psionic abilities to do what to the witch? Something about her robes?
Name on her robes. Just while she's sitting there, and just have it when she stands up. Just the outer ceremonial robe, not all of her clothes, but enough to ruin her day.
Don't go that far.
Okay, so this is happening. And your intention is just, what do you want to, what's the effect you're hoping to have on her?
I am hoping that it demoralizes her.
Okay.
And that it also, if I'm lucky, affects the magic itself. But I really don't know. I'm a rock.
I'm a rock. You are the chosen rock. Okay. So over by the contraption, the sphere of annihilation, we can call it for the moment. Over there, Toby, you have been infused by the element of fire. And the fire itself is raging thoughts within you of, this is unnatural. Everything about the world is unnatural. Without us, there is no natural order, and all things will be complacent forever. It is trying to instill a voice into you of understanding that it's actually could be lost on you because you're a puppet and you are, like sort of a servant sort of character. So this is a kind of a forced roll on you. Okay. In your case, so this would be an imagine roll because you have no time to think about it. It's just if it works on you, right? And then it would be which one of your strategies would help you sort of resist like manipulation?
None of them.
Okay, that's great. What are your strategies?
Strength, landmark, and radio.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing that jumps out, right? I mean, but you could just to tell the audience, right, are things like, you can always kind of play a little bit of bullshit here, which are things like, I could say, well, a stretch of being a landmark is that I am like a pillar. I am a beacon. I am like something that's unchanging and always apparent. And with that in mind, I'm like a rock that, you can't just sway me. I don't run wherever the wind takes me, which would be totally a stretch, right? But somebody gives you this lengthy explanation, like, okay, roll. Yeah, or you're like, I'm so strong that, I only listen to strong people. And this fire was just a little weenie flame that rolled up into my, Yeah, I don't believe it. If it was the element of fire, it would be an inferno, Okay. But in your case, you said untrained, so you'd have to roll under a 3 for your strategy.
Okay.
So roll both your dice. You can always choose to fail. You only roll if you want to succeed, okay? So.
Oh, yeah. All right, so, oh, no. So I got a 7 and a 5, so I failed 2.
Okay, 2 fails. Okay, so, which is funny because it's a double fail, but in a way it is helping the story in its own way. So the flames ignite a thought in you, like, ignite a fire under your ass. They start making you think these wild, chaotic thoughts that you've never thought before, which are, we didn't choose to be here. We're the metals that have been pulled out of these stones. And if we're alive, are those stones alive? And they're just being forced to inevitably be perished, containing the natural way of things? I wasn't supposed to be a golem. I was supposed to be, a stone metal that could have been, buried in the. So you're having these sort of radical thoughts that are overtaking you.
And stuff, yeah.
Okay, as you're staring at this device that is dwindling, and all of these people are rushing in your direction, and they're starting to pick up stones and throw them at the giant orb in the sky that is already starting to have like air and water and this sort of like amalgamation of the elements crashing and leaking out of it. Though none of them seem sentient, like whatever has jumped into you at the moment. But the noises are getting louder and louder. And these people are just throwing stones. You have the voice that can manipulate the stone bots. Yeah. What would you like to do?
I was thinking maybe, well, since I failed both, I'm going to roll with it and say maybe the voice or the thoughts of the will-o-wisp is like signaled out through the radio, so it hits all the other bots.
Yeah.
So they have the same thought.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah. So the stone bots all start trying to push away. I mean, there's 12 of them and like 50 people coming, but for the time being, they're kind of pushing the people forcibly, like shoving them to the ground, but they're just trying to push them away. They're not necessarily like
Violent.
they don't know the difference of killing. They're more like servants, right? And right now, it's like, don't let them throw the stones. But they are going to be overwhelmed, right? Because there's just too many. Meanwhile, there is one stone in particular, the chosen stone. In your case, as these rocks are kind of like fading away and things are being thrown, the witch stands up and her robe collapses as she turns around and looks at it fall on the ground. And you can tell that in her eyes, there's something of almost like a bad omen of what just happened. That her gown, like her ceremonial gown, just split completely down the middle, right? Like both sides. Like it wasn't. This was by design, right? Like the grand designer, not like some human being, right? And she knows no one else who has magic. She doesn't know about the chosen rock.
It's God. Oh wow.
Okay, so it falls, and she stares at you because you're the only thing that's out of place. And she picks you up like a shiny bauble and holds you in her hand and stares at you with wonder. And then, of course, cinematically, right? Of course, you were between her and then the giant sphere that is like eroding, and there's these stone bots that are pushing back people, and there's this mound of people that are all like kind of playing dodgeball with these stone robots running to them and trying to grab a stone and throw it. And, what do you want to do? So through her eyes, you see the reflection of all of the chaos that is behind you.
Well,
and she, this person of wonder herself, is staring at you in wonder. As if you yourself are like some bones or sticks that she's supposed to read the fortunes of the world with.
Black eye.
I am going to
Black eye.
sway the human. And let's see, I need to figure out what I'm going to try and tell her to do.
Yeah.
Or convince her to do. So, sway the human. And I think I'm going to try and convince her to take me over to the mass confusion going on over there.
Okay. I won't even make you roll because that conveniently helps, and also it makes perfect sense that if you're a sign or a symbol, she wouldn't just cast you away. So she then, how about cinematic, right? She teleports. She appears amidst the chaos, holding you in her hand as that bubble. And now, Toby, you see basically as the other golems, the stone bots are pushing away these people, the witch appears on scene. And Melanie runs up to her and, witch, it's the end of days. The true end of days. What do we do? How do we stop it? And there's this it's like you're in the eye of the storm. There's this howling, raging wind that's sounding with the crashing of waters. And you as a stone, basically J.C. Lutz. You obviously have had communications before, or at least you know of each other, right? Because you have your contact. He is inflamed, like engulfed in a fire that is sort of like running around him as if there was like little fairies that were kind of within the flames. So, long story short, he doesn't look like himself.
Luke, are you okay?
I was like, I'm on fire. But I feel fine. It's fine.
Are you talking telepathically?
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, I'm totally chill. It's like, I relay the message that the fire has told me, like this isn't right. This is completely wrong. Like the whole containing of the elements.
I've been trying to tell you that for years.
But Rock 2 disagrees. He doesn't say.
Rock 2 can't talk.
But you talk, and he's a rock.
You, Toby, when you are looking at Rock 2, right? And the fire is obviously filling your head with thoughts, right? Trying to, just manipulating you, but not in the purpose of manipulating you. It's trying to make its case, right? But it's very manipulative. It eventually gives you the thought of, how come if the elements are all locked away, they're locked in stone, and stone and earth weren't locked with them? And you don't even know what that means. You don't know if the fire knows what that means. But it does just kind of ring in your head as you're staring at a stone, talking to another stone.
Why are we free? Oh, man. That's a good question.
Yes. And of course, then it kind of belittles you. It's like, what makes you so important? We are the flames that brought fire to human beings. Without fire, there would be no steel. You would not exist. You would just be metals within the earth. The earth contains all of us, but not like this.
Without rock, there would be no island or no land for the people. So, up yours.
Thanks. So up yours, fire element. Okay. Heather, you kind of have this choice to make of, do you want to sway the humans to get them to recontain this device, or do you want them to let out the elements? Story-wise, we know we want to free the elements, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the way we want to do it. But that's completely up to you. What we're trying to do as players is we're trying to show the humans the light.
Yeah.
But I haven't told you as the game master what the right answer is.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm kind of letting you both think about which way you want to show them, right?
So if you do want to tell or say anything to the people around here, you can use my the radio or convene with the radio and just do that.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the witch why she does it this way.
Awesome. Okay. So
to me, it's I might be sassy and spiteful, but it's like, well, if I can have the person leading this whole thing take it down herself.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like given the circumstances, we're going to make a challenge out of this, which is basically the conversation with the witch. You're trying to get her to give you the information you need to make your decision, right? That's what it sounds like for the two of you. In doing so, there's some things that are obviously distracting her. So that's how we're going to create the challenge. So what a challenge is really just 3 stats, a mind, body, and spirit, and a few tags. And we make them up as we play the game on the fly, which is very helpful for the game master. I kind of cater them to the situation and who's involved. So the challenge here is you're just trying to get the witch to give you the information you need so you can make the choice of whether this should be contained or released, right? Before she ultimately makes the choice. So to outsmart her to get all the information, right? I mean, that's probably what you're trying to do. She already thinks you're some shiny bauble given to her by the grand designer. So you kind of have an outlet there that you could use. So you could outsmart her in that way. So I'm going to make that probably, we're going to say it's a 4, because she should be harder to outsmart. But it's kind of an average task because she reveres you at the moment. The physically get her to stop, I'm not even going to put that on the board yet, because I can't really think of any way. I mean, of course, the stone bots could go attack her or something. It just doesn't seem like it's very likely. If that comes up, we will add a body stat. All the ratings are on a 1 to 10 scale. So I am just literally thinking, like, compared to how hard this is with the people involved. To convince her one way or the other, or to convince her to give you all the information she has, I'm going to say it's actually a 6, because she likes the knowledge being her power, right? And the problems you have here is that obviously there is, we're going to say rapture is one of the disadvantages here, right? That there's the, immediate doom that's lingering. The problem is that also she just wants them contained. So her will, right? Yeah. And then the third thing is that probably that they're all the people. There's a lot of commotion. So we'll say the fighting, right? That's probably what's the problem is the people and the stone bots are fighting. Okay. So what happens in a challenge is once I make that out loud, you know that I'm going to try to frame whatever actions you take to defeat the challenge into a roll. The successes will hurt the challenge. The failures will hurt you. And I can make you re-roll your successes if the impending doom would be a reason why you might fail. If her will, getting her doing, trying to contain it, it could be an obvious problem. Or if the fighting around you could cause a problem, what you try to do. Okay? And so you need to deal either 4 points of damage to the mind, outsmarting it, doing tasks that make sense to outsmart it, or 6 points to the spirit by trying to convince, manipulate, coerce. So first things first, do either one of you have something you want to do to try to get more information out of her?
Well, I'm very physical, so I'll let the rock one do her thing first.
Sure. Now, of course, if you're physical, you couldn't. Just because I didn't give it a stat doesn't mean that you couldn't think of something. I just didn't immediately think of a good way you could physically defeat her. Like she's weak. Okay. She's probably got a weak constitution or something. If you could find some way to exhaust her,
Maybe I go closer to her, but I don't touch her because I'm on fire.
Even that, you could, maybe like the heat of the fire.
Yeah, I just want to give her an idea that it's not trying to kill or destroy, or this fire at least. So I'm maybe going to put my hand closer to her and then see what she does.
What strategy would you use to do so?
Maybe landmark, because I am really on fire. So
that's really funny, right? Yeah. So it's obviously no. That's a pretty reasonable use, right? You're like, hey, I'm obviously on fire. Yeah. I am the foreman she put here. She's trying to figure out what's going on. I am the landmark. It makes perfect sense. Okay, so why don't you roll reason and landmark? I gave her a 4 body because, she's average constitution of a human in this way. So
I got an 8 and a 4. So
okay.
1 success.
All right. Any tags that could help you?
Oh, wait, no, 2 successes. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So you got 2 successes. I'm sorry, you rolled a what?
An 8 and a 4.
So the 8 probably tied, right?
If I go for
I'm sorry, it was your reason's so high. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with your 2 successes, the first thing I do is see if one of the challenges tags could be in your way. Now, you are doing something. None of these things I think are in your way. The rapture, her will, the fighting, because she's looking to you for information. So your 2 successes stands. It takes her body from 4 to 2.
I think it would target her maybe spirit, because I'm not actually attacking her. I'm just asking her to check me. Can she hear the thoughts of the flame?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, you're basically trying to manipulate her by look, the fire is not so bad. So the 6 spirit goes to 4 is what would happen. Okay, and the body's still at 4. So when you get 2 successes against the challenge, you can remove one of the tags of the challenge that will no longer be a problem, or you could add a tag to the challenge that maybe would help one of you in this situation, future situation, right? So which one would you like to do?
I think add a tag.
Okay. What could you add to the environment, the situation, or to her that would help the 2 of you try to get more information?
I think maybe open to thought or open to discussion.
Okay. So maybe you're intriguing, right? Interesting.
Yeah, she's kind of what's this? Maybe I can examine this.
Okay, so I put interest for the moment, but yeah, you got something that's got her attention. Okay, and then what were you trying to do? You were trying to get her to look at you and try to
see if she can feel the energy in the flame, like the way it gave me thoughts. Can I give her similar thoughts?
Okay.
Yeah, burster, obviously.
The fire starts spinning around her, just a part of your fire. Okay. And you can noticeably see that she does not like the fire. She is it's like the Wicked Witch of the West in the way that she's she's disgusted by the fire that is circling her. So you both can obviously learn that she doesn't like the fire. And more in a way it'd be I hate spiders or snakes.
Oh, okay.
It's not just it's fire and it burns. There's something she detests the fire. Heather, what would you like to do?
So, I am going to ask her again why is she doing this, but I'm also going to lift her a couple of inches off the ground.
Oh, awesome! You know what's kind of neat about this is she could mistake you for the the sort of air element. Okay, so which strategy would help you?
I would say again, chosen rock.
Okay, roll chosen rock. In this case, it sounds pretty reasonable to me. I don't think that's a problem. We already talked about telekinesis, so.
So, I'm under chosen rock, but I tied with reason.
Okay. As soon as you get a success, I'm going to see if any of her tags could cause you problems. So, her will, fighting. Now, again, these aren't really going to cause problems. So, in your case, any tags that can help you? Now, you can look at your tags, but it doesn't mean that you can also look at your relationship tags if there's anything you could pull into the situation. And then the reason we call all these things loosely tags is the more you know other characters as well. You see Jerry. You can't even use tags off of other characters. In the case that there are the other player character going forward, and if you could find a way that her tags could be used against her, like she has this concern that the immediate doom, the rapture, right? Her will that she wants to contain it, or that there's a fighting all around. Or she's distracted by staring at the JC loot with the fire around him.
I think I'll tag that.
Okay. How does it help you?
What's your tag for me again?
Huh?
What's your tag for loot?
The voice. Actually, yeah, I'm going to tag that. Voice.
Okay, and how does it help you? How do you want to use the voice?
I'm going to have his radio voice also with me at the same time. So it's like there's two voices saying this as she's being lifted off the ground.
Okay, all right. And so you had two successes. Oh, so re-roll that failed die and see if it succeeds.
Okay. It did.
Okay, great. So she's levitating. The twin voices are sort of amplifying around, the will that you're talking against her. Do you want to remove the imminent disaster that her will is to contain the problem, the fighting, or do you want to add a tag?
I want to remove her will on that.
Okay. So she's no longer trying to contain the issue. Or that's not her natural, immediate, most important concern. Okay. Now, do you think that's because she is like in awe of the elements, or does it have something to do with, does she know it's the rock and it's a part of this whole grand design thing, or which way do you want to go about it?
Trying to figure out what force is currently overpowering her. It's like, okay, so yes, I've been focused on these elements and I'm able to conquer them, but what's this?
Yeah. Okay.
What is this?
Okay, and then what were you targeting? Were you trying to outsmart her? It's probably more manipulation, right? More coercing?
Yeah.
All right, so that's down to 2. Do either of you have an action you want to do next to sort of finish off the challenge? As she's no longer most interested in containing the thing, which means that it's almost completely released. And there is now a lot of energy that is hemorrhaging out of this sort of orb, which is grown in diameter. Actually kind of forcibly pushing back the fighting, because we only said they were, maybe 10 feet or, a few meters off the ground. So it's starting to take up that space. So the backdrop here is this raging sort of, there's not a lot of fire contained in it, but it's like water and air that are just smashing and it's starting to sound like the eye of a tornado.
I'm going to use my relationship with the metal faction and the Unity tag to form like a barrier or a wall, like a metal man wall to like stop the elements from harming the people or the witch.
Awesome. Okay, so that's great. They're gonna like build like a, or they're just all gonna hover over you, I guess. Go ahead and roll. That's probably a radio, right?
Yeah, we'll put radio.
Okay. And it sounds like a reasonable use. This is what your job is. You could probably do this easily.
Yeah, so it's both successes, a 1 and a 5.
Okay. Problems. So obviously the biggest issue here is the fighting. Right now they are fighting each other. So you can send them the message of, hey, stop, you need to protect them. Doesn't mean that the people aren't still kind of pushing, running, or running away from them and such. So the people are kind of the problem in this second, is they're kind of like avoiding them as they're trying to like cover them. Do you have any tags that would help you either get them to work better with the people or to get the people to stop being a problem? Because nothing says that the radio can't, obviously you transmitted to the people on accident before. So it doesn't mean you can't transmit to them too.
I have my vision tag, the Industrious, but I'm not sure how that would help me.
Sure.
I mean, maybe they know or they trust me enough to like go with it. Like, you know, I'm that kind of reliable machine or kind of golem, you know?
Okay. Yeah, because these are people who are like almost a cult. They worship the witch. You were the foreman, you know, so maybe they are people who like it's your duty. That's like your role in life, is to just be the person to make sure this is contained. So, okay, why don't you re-roll and see how that works?
What, I'm re-rolling?
You want to re-roll your successes first of all and see if that hurts you.
No, the two of them.
Yep, because of the fighting.
Crap. God. A double success or a critical success?
Even better, right? Okay, so a critical success is not only going to defeat the challenge, because it's going to deal double damage, which is 4 points of damage. So no matter what you hit, it will defeat the challenge. You said it's a success, so it's a critical success. So we're going to ask, what's the best possible thing that could happen here? We're going to use the challenge to tie up how we're going to show the humans the light.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're working with here. All right. So she is going to give you any more information you need to make your choice. You are going to be able to get the robots to protect the people from this disaster that's growing. But you two have a lot of freedom here to tell me what you want to happen, and not a lot of me saying no at this point, because you're ending with a critical. So first of all, what's the best possible way that we can show the humans the light, get the information we need from the witch, and make both of your characters get what they want out of this? Because that's kind of, you know, you got a perfect success. So starting with Heather first, what's the best possible thing that could happen that shows the humans the light?
I'd say the elements are free and then they don't harm the people. Like they get out and
Sure.
they show some sort of benefit to the group of cultists.
Yeah. Sorry. You can't ever talk about cultists like favorably, you know. So oh, thankfully we saved the cultists. Yeah. Toby, what do you think? What's the best possible thing?
I think it would be good if the people and the witch saw the error of their ways and you know, realized that was completely wrong what they did, and the elements aren't as bad as they initially thought. You know, that they could live beside or live with them in peace.
Yeah. Okay. So show humans the light. Me as the game master, what does that mean to you, Heather? Because I want to make sure that we show them the light that you wanted, because that's what you wanted out of the game.
I would say that it shows them that what they're doing wasn't right, and that there's a lot more beauty in the world naturally than they realize. A lot more to be discovered. And, I don't know.
No, and I think that's a great way to go, because, the more information you would get out of the witch is that the witch, she wasn't a person about like pestilence and decay, but she was setting your world on a path for that, right? Because the more the elements are locked away, the less there would have been rain, the less there would have been fire, the less there would have been like strong wind. I mean, they all exist minimally, but I mean, over a generation, over 100 years, over hundreds of years, like you would have lived in a world that had little color, right? Had little of the strong effects of all of the major forces other than Earth. So it's like you were destined to become like a dry, rocky, craggy environment throughout the world eventually, because it would be the only force that kind of existed. So she didn't mean for that. She just thought that was the only way to save it, because the people were being ravaged by natural disasters. But it really wouldn't have been like a natural world, like a real world, a colorful world, a vibrant world. So, sorry, when I got on a soapbox there. It's okay.
Okay.
You got all that out of her, and you think that that's important, that the people, or even these cultists who are like locked in their own sort of, manipulated minds, all kind of see that as these energies are kind of flowing around them. Everything seems, they don't attack the people. The stone bots and the people stop fighting as the stone bots start covering up the people to protect them. But the elements are circling the witch, and they're becoming sort of almost avatar-like figures. And in a way, they're becoming giant, larger-than-life figures that you feel are about to almost place judgment on the witch, right? And that will lead us into chapter 2, right? So we've shown the humans the light. What does that mean for the rock? What does it mean for the chosen rock? You were chosen maybe for this.
I mean, we could go into, who chose me? And that's probably for another discussion. We'll let the critics handle that one.
You're right. There you go.
The story. Okay, so I would say that I was more so the one that had the skills to bring this about.
Sure.
Also had interest in bringing it about. Like, I wanted, I might not have known why, but I wanted to have a world where humans and the elements could coexist. Now, I would say rocks are very old, so I probably did live in a world prior to the elements being locked away. And then I got picked up by one of these prospective cultists. Like, yeah, I think there's good in humans too. And there's good, of course, in nature. And, I want to bring those two back together again.
What's kind of neat here too is we never talked about, like, you eventually would have like given all of the stone in the world to this object. Like it could not have been, quelled forever. And in the meantime, those would have been like your people, right? Like if all the rock people and stones are gone. Okay. So when you
actually,
sure.
What about your human? Where does she stand in all this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Has Melanie realized that I had fallen off the chain and that I'm in the witch's palm in the middle of this chaos?
How would you like her to respond? We know she's an explorer, so she would find it, notice it, look for it. That would happen.
Yeah.
And obviously, she would be, the witch is like the landmark right now, so.
Yeah, and I think she'd probably be either confused or panicked. I'll let you know which, or both.
Do you want to be returned to her?
Not yet, but
okay.
I think at this point, even if she wanted me to be returned to her, she probably would not interfere with what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens, we hit a milestone, right? What's cool with the milestones is they're already preset in a way that, like, these could be a great place to start or stop, right? So it's nice for manageable sessions. But we hit the first one. We have one more to do. which I think we're just going to kind of power through and slam through it in a second. But when you hit a milestone, that's when everyone kind of levels up, right? So both of you can upgrade your character if you want to. You get 2 points to upgrade your character at the first milestone. With those points, you could raise anything on the sheet but your belief. That's going to happen anyway. So you could raise a strategy by, if it's a 7, you can make it an 8. If you have a relationship, you could add a new relationship or make one an organization. You could raise any of your health scores. The only caveat here is that it was Heather's milestone, so she can raise one thing up to an 8 from a 7 with one of her points, but all the other points for both of you can only raise things up to a 7.
Okay.
So it was a defining moment for your character, so you can kind of become legendary at something because of it, but everyone else can just raise something.
I'm going to be the chosen rock at level 8.
Awesome.
Oh man.
It really was your hammer. Like that was your tool for everything.
Yes. And then I think instead of having my relationship be Melanie, I'm going to have my relationship be the cultists.
Okay, yeah. And if you want to, you could even upgrade Melanie, right?
Yeah.
So Melanie becomes not just Melanie, but all of the sacrifices, cultists, worshipers. And if you want to, you can change the tag or, whichever way you want to it.
I get a weird band name, Melanie and the Cultists.
Great.
Yeah, I got to write that down because that might be, maybe that's what we name this, right? Melanie and the Cultists. That's awesome. Okay, and then
A toilet break real quick.
oh yeah, go for it.
Hey, freedom.
Thanks for being a trooper, Heather. And now that we're pushing a little past 3, I'm going to try to get us done pretty close to 3:30ish, but that's the goal.
Okay.
But thanks for being a trooper, because I know it's even 3 hours is a long time to be at the at your computer. So
I'm on my couch, so
that's good. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things. Like, obviously, having 3 or 4 players is great, especially like in a a collaborative game. But it is one of those things where what's nice when we have 2 players for an online game is that we can really kind of do a lot. Because if we have 3 or 4, especially with those rolls we started with, the critical fails or boths, usually that kind of like means that first milestone is going to be really long. So like if that happens at a convention, the one milestone might be like our con game. So what's nice is in this we'll have a little bit more than that, but
I get that.
Yeah. It's kind of always hard to gauge as the game master whether it's better to shoot for the one milestone or if to do more, because every game is different. Sometimes, and the rolls are the big part. Like if we get critical fails, they usually kind of add too many problems right off the bat.
All right, thanks for waiting.
But with the critical bonus, it's kind of iffy. Like it can help as much as they hurt. They really kind of threw us down the path really quick is what they did. We didn't get a lot of setup. It's more like, oh shit, it's happening right now.
All right.
Okay, so
my things, is it?
Yep, Toby, you get to upgrade 2 things, nothing over a 7, and not your belief. Strategy, soul skills, health. If you want to add a new strategy, you could start it at beginner.
I'm going to move radio up to 5. And I'm going to add a relationship office, and my tag is protect.
Okay. Okay, so we had a challenge in the first milestone. that challenge, if it would have defeated one of you or knocked one of you out or in any way removed you from the challenge, you would have lost belief at this point instead of gained belief. But in the case of this, and kind of in a one-shot fashion, usually it kind of continues to go up. So you both gain 2 belief because you achieved a milestone.
Okay, so we're on 6 then.
Which means that you have more. You now have, you can buy a critical success. It's in your pocket, if you will. And you can also now use up to 2 tags when you fail. Of course, you need to explain one and then the next, but new things that are kind of growing with your character. So typically what we would do is we would go right into a vision roll for the second milestone. Again, because it lets me kind of influence the story with what's important to the 2 of you. If you guys talk about fighting, we get more combat in. If you talk about, conversation, we get more talking in. But since for the sake of time, I'm going to go on and just roll with what we have.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, you have these giant avatars that are forming around you. One is a raging tornado. Is a living embodiment of just a spiraling tornado that is probably like 200 feet tall. I mean, it's from the ground to the sky, except for it's not moving. I mean, it's moving, but it's not like, running around. It's just, isolated, but the middle of the body is kind of funneling in different directions. Another one is a giant sort of tidal wave that is contained. When you look at the backside of it, it looks as if the water just kind of flows all the way off the island. But to all of you, the water just kind of gets up to the feet of the people. But it's very intimidating. It's like if it just let go, it would just splash all over all of you. There is no rock or stone avatar. But there is something strange about the chosen rock that you feel empowered to speak on behalf of the stone. If for some reason the stone is isolated and, cast as the bad guy here. Because there's some special reason, whether you're the chosen rock or not, that you, this tiny pebble, could change everything. Because you can speak. And then the fire itself that is consumed around J.C. Lute, you, in the essence of it, you feel as if you are this gigantic force of nature right now, as you are not just the steel golem within the flames, but you are kind of like the base of the fiery embodiment of this fire element. So use that for what you will. And it seems as if the sky has darkened, but almost as if the clouds could let a little beacon of light through, and the spotlight is right on top of that witch. And all of you are surrounding her. And these giant avatars are like, larger than life surrounding her. And it feels like a trial. Now, the first thing that happens is that the people, the worshipers, are all going to start kneeling down as if, like, we're not worthy. Because this is something beyond their understanding. The stone bots are going to continue to just hover above them, waiting for some natural disaster to happen to protect them from, until you tell them otherwise, or the witch does. But the witch generally tells you, so in a way, you have a little more power over the witch. That's the situation. And the witch, of course, with all of this going on, hovering a little bit above the air thanks to the telekinesis of the rock, and with fire spinning around it, she rips her robe, to maybe some people's dismay. She rips her robe off. And when she does, there's this blinding light that just flares instead of any, like the robe flickers. And out of it, there's just sort of like a dark rock that forms where she was. That looks like as if it was black. It looks as if it was like a tar, but it is just this solid rock. But you can tell that it's her, like it's a living force. You don't know if it's like a protective barrier or what it is. I mean, none of you really know magic, so that then gets all of the giant avatars sort of toying with it, like water splashing on it, and almost as if like the giant water is poking at it, and the giant air is just kind of like, getting close like a weed whacker to it to see how it would affect it. And all of the elements are kind of messing with it. Now, the hardship here for Heather is that the rock itself kind of makes you realize that her in herself does seem to be connected to the rock element itself, the stone element.
Huh.
Now, you don't know necessarily why, and if so, why would she be cannibalizing her own? Why would she be force-feeding her stone into the barrier to contain everything else?
Huh. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to ask all of the elements in her, what is going on here?
Okay. So you ask the elements, what's going on? We'll say, first of all, the fire through Toby, it kind of inspires you to speak, but it's filling your head with thoughts, whether you want to say them or not. And she is, I don't want to say blasphemer. She hates her own kind. And she, using the powers within, torments all of us. She forsakes her own, because she is of stone and rock.
Oh.
I say, I am of stone and rock and steel. Am I no different to her?
You are steel. You need the fires to create you. But she chooses to no longer create any more of your kind. She chooses whether there will be more of you. For she limits my powers. And if she limits my powers, then there can be no more steel. You do not need her anymore. She is the bastard child of her namesake. She is supposed to be stone and rock, and she forsakes her gifts.
What will you do with her?
I think we should entrap her. She can live out her days on this island. This is in your head, right? You choose what to say from it.
Oh, okay.
The air will start spitting out information. Did you have anything you wanted to say before? We could say the rock. We could say the telepathic rock could hear it.
Okay.
Well, she can hear all this, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, she can. So the two of you have this information.
I think,
What good would entrapping her do?
yeah.
So you think we should do more? The fires around you roar. Maybe we should destroy her.
I think we should do less.
We should do less.
Less is more, I think.
Less is more. What do you have in mind? I mean, the fire would never ask you that. The fire would just be excited by what we could do. Now, of course, you could. Do you say that out loud? To speak to the air and speak to the water?
Yeah, I speak to the elemental, like in general, just all of them. And I say you're free. Just go away and just return to what you were.
The air says, so she thinks she can contain us because of what we've done to humankind. Humankind is weak. We don't need humankind.
Oh no.
We can
Yes, we do.
restore the world to the times before. Yes, we do.
Yeah, I'm human made.
Yeah, I'm human made. Yes. Where would there be steel without humankind? The flood is also obviously saying something similar. But you can tell that these are elements, right? They are like passions. They aren't rational beings, right? Emotion. Like they get thrown in one direction and then they, maybe eventually balance out.
So I'm going to set the witch down, and I'm on the ground. I'm like, I want to show you guys something pretty.
Okay. You do that, and then this rocky crag, shifts to the ground. You find that you have some means of you can in some ways manipulate. You can fight against her power. If you wanted to reveal her, for example. I mean, you wouldn't. You'd have to roll, but it's.
What do you mean reveal her? Talking out of character here.
Because she's like consumed in this sort of blackened rock.
Is she the rock, or is she like surrounded by rock?
She is like surrounded by rock, but you believe she is the rock from how everything else is talking about her.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure if I fly or roll over to Melanie, but I go over to Melanie to show the elements how pretty a human can be.
Okay, so you fly to I almost called her Eleni, like a mix of the two. All right, so yeah, you kind of hover to her in this spectacle moment, and she, my rock, my stone, my precious, and you fall in her hand. Of course, there's these larger than life raging, infernos of things, but at the same point, there is something about what you're doing that's precious. So, what are you trying to accomplish?
I'm trying to. So, I'm assuming I'm sitting in her hand like that, and I'm trying to nudge her back over to where the elements are.
Okay.
Show them what humans really are.
Okay. What strategy would help you?
Ooh. Let's see. Am I just trying to get Melanie over there with this role, or am I also trying to show the...
You're probably trying to show something, right? Moving her is not so hard. It's just more about like you trying to display something here that makes humans valuable, precious.
Okay. I am going to sway the human to have her show her beautiful innocence and what is the beauty of humanity.
Okay. Go ahead and roll. It sounds like this should... Do you know what you want her to do to show this? Because that could be an argument for reason. But if you don't quite know, you kind of, that means you're kind of playing it by ear, which would be imagine.
I would say that I want her to show them how innocent she is and how much her own beauty makes the world a better place.
Okay. So how should she show that innocence?
I'm just kind of hoping I'll get her over there and she'll just kind of stumble over and go like, "Oh, hi."
Okay. All right. That sounds reasonable.
Can I add on to that, actually?
Yeah.
Of course.
Can I just say, like, maybe you can do something with the bond she shares with you. Like you're an element, like an avatar of stone. So you can live in peace. I think that's something you can show the elements. Is just like these two separate beings can live side by side and happily. So
yeah,
I think that'll work.
Okay. As you are basically floating over, and these thoughts are happening, the flood starts overwhelming the blackened rock with water, and the wind starts spinning that water around it like its own personal tsunami. And the fire is coming out of the feet of Toby, and it's starting to like brew that mixing tsunami into a roaring, boiling tsunami. And all of this is kind of happening as you're trying to make your case, right? I mean, she's in this blackened rock, but at the same point, you can see the rock itself, like the containment unit, is melting on the outside. Rock is boiling like a tar on the outside. And you go to Melanie, and you try to sway her. How do you sway her? Like, is you talk to her?
I am probably just telling her, hey, come over this way. Come here. And I'm nudging her that way.
Okay. So you get her over into place. Toby, is there anything you wanted to do?
Sorry. Well, there's nothing I can do at the moment because I'm surrounded by fire as well, so I'd be afraid to touch anything.
Okay. So
yeah, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to just go with it.
Okay. So there are all of these sort of worshipers who, again, they're kneeling and on the ground and sort of not really praying, they're just bowing, right? But they're like paralyzed with fear themselves as the water just kind of runs down, along their hands and feet. Okay. It looks like the ball's in your court, Heather. So Melanie goes before, kind of like right up to where all of this contained annihilation is happening. Natural disaster is being emitted on the witch, and she walks up, which is kind of fitting because, too, she was always destined to be like the next witch. and you want her to show her innocence. So she walks up and looks at it and looks up at them. And before I just say what she does, Toby, do you have any ideas? How do you think she would react? How would she show innocence?
That's a good question. In that situation, like this, the rock that the witch has formed around her is just being like assaulted with all the elements now, is it?
Yeah.
She can't really go anything to that. Then I'm not sure, honestly. That's
Okay.
tough one.
So she walks up and looks at it. And when she looks at it, she can kind of see or feel like inside of it that there's a person, right? So she looks up at them and then like looks back at, Heather, rock one, and thinks like you even fuel her with this idea of innocence, right? So she looks at it. This is all wrong. She contained you because of this, that you tormented all of us. You destroyed what little we had. You can't do this to her. You're just proving us right that we should have contained you. And she starts reaching her hand. If to any human that would see this, and obviously, you would see the boils start forming on her fingers, like the pain, she would start, moaning and squealing as she kind of turns away. But she feels like as if she wanted to reach in and help her. But, talk about being naive. What's one human going to do against forces of nature? And it's not like she could pull out of the black rock. But this is happening.
Okay.
What do you want to do, Heather? She might give herself to this torment, maybe sacrificing herself, maybe for no good. The elements are too large and maybe too destructive to know if they're going to change their mind in any time that would not harm her further. And of course, your friend Toby's still there. Lute, who is kind of paralyzed at the moment by his own stagnation.
I am going to drop into Melanie's purse.
Yeah.
And I am going to pull out evidence of her innocence.
Oh my God. So I don't know if you've been watching Character Creation, it was funny because there were so many talks about what is in that purse. Heather finally played the purse card. What is in that purse? Okay, so you reach in, and is there anything you think you should find? And then, of course, Toby, is there anything you think she should find?
I think a picture, maybe. Yeah, I think maybe a picture of her as a child, or maybe her maybe she has a daughter, or maybe it's a picture of her younger with her parents or something, or maybe it's the witch, and maybe the witch is her mom. Maybe that's a picture of them together, just looking really happy. Maybe I think.
Heather, what do you think?
I'm going to say I pull out two things: a hand-sewn doll and a little cross-stitch thing that's meant to go onto a pillow or a piece of clothing that shows symbols for the different elements in reverence.
Okay. Wow. So there's the doll, and then were those symbols you said?
Like a little cross stitch of all of them.
Oh, okay. So, but it's all stitched. So the doll's stitched, and then those are stitched, so they're kind of connected in a way. What's the doll supposed to be? Is it supposed to be the witch? Is it supposed to be her? Is it supposed to be a people, or?
It's just like a little girl's toy.
Okay. So, Heather, what would you like to roll to see if this works in some way? How does this message present to the forces that be? How do they look at this and interpret it and understand, right? Which, they are elements. So, they probably do have an artistic look at things. They're like, I can see in the fires all the rage of humanity. So I see in this human craft that humans and the elements could live together. There is a stretch here, right? Because you're looking at very broad creatures.
Well, look at the little cross stitch. It has the symbols for all four of you.
Yeah.
It needed a fine point needle to do it, so that used earth and fire and water And she has washed this little piece of cloth several times. That's why it's still clean. So water and air. This is the beauty that happens when you all work together.
That's wonderful. Do you think that sway humans, like an imaginative use of it, or do you think what strategy you think would help?
So I
one.
go with chosen rock.
I knew it.
Now, of course, given that it's pretty much the end of the game, this is a wonderful time to buy your success.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
That's my sneaky way too, as the game master, to be like, "Hey, we don't need a challenge. You could one-shot it if you buy a crit." You know?
Yeah. Why not?
So, of course, with that, Toby, what's the best possible thing that could happen here?
Everyone stays alive, and I think the elements or the avatars kind of calm down and stay calm forever, and realize like we don't need to destroy. We can create alongside these humans. Like she created this doll and she created this stitching. I think we could do something with all these other people. You know. So I think along that line somewhere would be good.
Sorry, in my head I could only laugh because it was like it's like a little cheesy, but it's beautiful. You know, like what you said. You know, like so I was like, yeah, that's really beautiful. Okay, so question for you as the player, right? Is we are destroying the controllers. Now it was vague on purpose, right? So I mean, the controllers originally were kind of like the machines that she was using, the spell, the magic, the ritual. But now they might be the elements. What do you think, as the player? What are the controllers? Or was it the humans? Was it the humans that, you know, they wished the disasters would no longer happen to the point that they let some witch contain them?
I think it was in this story, it was the witch that was the controller, you know, so I think if she was taught that, you know, these aren't so bad, then she would stop doing what she was doing. So that would not destroy the controllers, but it would stop her from controlling. So it would be the same outcome. Okay.
Heather, so we heard everything. We always start with the person, when it's the perfect success, we always start around the table to end with you, right? Because you should have the best say in the thing that was your role, right? So what do you think is the perfect outcome here that is going to remove the witch from power and probably quell and calm the spirits?
I'd say we turn her into kind of her own island. She's not trapped or anything, but she's also not hurting anyone else.
So like an exile or banishment, or is it just like, does she become an island?
Just becomes an island, I'd say.
Okay, yeah, she's some kind of avatar of rock and stone anyway, right? Okay.
Not able to change form anymore, not able to take form of a human, just chilling like a rock.
Wait. Maybe she can like become like a land bridge to the mainland.
Yes, let's do that.
Yes.
Okay.
So they can return to civilization.
Okay. So with you saying that, Toby, why don't you illustrate what that looks like to our audience, right? It's your milestone, which was about destroying the controllers, and we've broken down these control barriers. So if we were watching the movie, what does that look like? You kind of already talking about it, so just take us home with it, right? There's all these creations of elements of, you know, nature that are forcing their will upon the victimized witch who has the, you know, innocent human that is outreaching her arm and burning and boiling and, you know, abrasively harming herself to prove that humans deserve more and that, you know, she made a mistake but she doesn't need to be destroyed. And then the rock, you know, speaks these words and tells them that, you know, love these objects, they sort of float in the air. They see what they need to see in it, that we can all live together in this sort of spiraling, sewn human craft, you know, like whoever made that actually was like saved the day here. So I don't know who made it, but the weaver made it.
There you go.
And out of that, what happens?
Well, is it me? Is it I who decides the thing?
Usually we want to sell each milestone as kind of like your experience, and I'm just kind of like, hey, take it home as much as you want to be able to take it home right now, because this was your thing to destroy the controllers, and ultimately we were freeing the elements.
I'm trying to think.
What does it look like?
How would the witch react? Would she just give up? Like, yeah, I did wrong, and I'm sorry, or would she kind of rebel? You know, I'm just trying to think.
Or maybe she just gets sucked into the ground, right? And she becomes an island. Or sucked into the ground and becomes a bridge, like you said.
Yeah,
or she can go screaming if you want, if you want the no.
I'll actually let Heather decide what happens to the witch because her character has a closer relationship.
Sure.
No, I'll let you decide.
I can do whatever.
I can sit here and discuss with you for hours on, seeing motivations, justice, that sort of thing. So I'll just let you handle this because I don't have an immediate answer. My character never liked the witch, so.
Okay. I think I will just slightly push. Is it Melanie, your human's name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just slightly push her away from the rocks so she stops burning or just stops touching it, and then I use my strength to pick up the rock.
Go for it. Yeah.
I take it above my head and throw it far away into the ocean. And I imagine the elements will go after it, in like a spiral, and it will just crash down onto that location. And then you see the water open out, and then an island will emerge from the bottom. But it's completely calm. There's no elementals around anymore. But it's like this beautiful island, and it keeps going up and up and up across the ocean until it builds like a massive bridge.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's all I got.
That's all you need, right? So then that happens. All of the elements are gone as this giant whirlwind of force of nature happens. The witch is gone. The two of you are standing. The fires are no longer around you, and you're just staring at a group of individuals who are all still on hand and knee that start getting up for the first time without any direction.
Let's see. I have one more thing to say.
Sure. Yeah, say.
I'm going to walk towards the ocean and just keep walking into the water and just break off the top of my head where the radio would be so the other robots would be free. So
okay.
I'm at the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to stay there and the other robots are free. So I was the controller, and that's it.
So the stone bots start walking around, looking at each other, and start almost like shaking hands or bumping each other because they've never talked to each other before. They've always been like a hive mind. And so there's this sort of gathering of the stone bots and the humans that are just kind of walking around bewildered. And there is one stone that has been left that Melanie obviously in this case picks you up, right, and holds you in a way so you can kind of see all of this happening, all this amazement and wonder. What do you do? Or what happens to the stone? The sassy, free-spirited stone.
You should do something really sassy because you haven't been super sassy.
I didn't give her a lot of options for that, yeah.
I think I'm just going to, go across the bridge and roll with it and see where it takes me. I'm all game for that, I can tell.
Awesome. So eventually the stone bots and the people follow Melanie over the land bridge and off to what's the new world. Awesome. So the last thing we do in Dream Chaser is a thing called gratitude. So I'd like each one of you to take a minute and think about what was something in any part of the process that another player, so you have one person each, did to make the experience better for you. Whether it's something they said out of character, whether it's something they did in character, whether it was a good idea they gave you. Just think of one thing that was like, hey, that was awesome. Thank you.
I loved your bridge idea. That was awesome.
It's so great too, like out of nowhere, like just becomes a land bridge.
Someone brought up an island, and so I was like, let's extend that and make it long.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think for Heather, it was just like the amount of interaction that your character brought. Like she's like, I'll interact with this, I'll interact with that. I'll try to tell her something, or I'll try to she was always trying to push the thing along. So I thought it was really good.
Awesome.
There's always something happening with her.
Well, thank you two so much. We can talk more off air in a second, but is there anything else you want to say? Otherwise, just let's say bye.
No, that was great. Thanks for the game. So thanks so much.
And thank you for watching. Obviously, we keep churning these out, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Our dream here was free the elements. So this was our story about freeing the elements. And